Chapter 859. It was like a gust of wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. In a short period of time, the hundreds of rebels led by Wintian's lover were all killed. 70% of them were killed by Queen Lan Qi. The remaining 30% were devoured alive by the Naga Shuang. At this time, Shuang had become a huge snow-white Naga. Her body was covered in blood, and she no longer looked like a human. In fact, one couldn't even tell that she was a snake. She looked very similar to a dragon. Gradually, horns, sharp fangs, a body that was dozens of meters long, and sharp claws appeared. This was the original form of the Naga. It was instinctively different from the sea serpents and mermaids. At this time, there was only one person left, and that was the demon King Wintian's lover. Queen Lan Qi and the Naga Shuang had their eyes on her at the same time. This beautiful maid's entire body was trembling. She was completely shocked by the Naga Shuang and Queen Lan Qi's massacre. Although her cultivation was actually higher than the Naga Shuang's, she was suppressed by this energy field. It was hard for her to muster up any courage to resist. Speaking of which, they were already the second generation of the new Naga. Sir Yang Dingtian, she was once my maid and a good sister. Let me end her, Queen Lan Qi said. Wintian's lover said coldly, no need. I will end it myself. Then, she suddenly pulled out her sword and was about to commit suicide. However, Naga Shuang's huge body suddenly pounced forward. Her sharp claws immediately tore Wen Tian's fragrant body into pieces. Blood splattered everywhere, and pieces of flesh splattered everywhere. Wintian's lover didn't even have time to scream before her body was smashed into pieces. Then, the Naga Shuang opened her mouth and quickly devoured Wintian's lover's energy, blood, and other things. At this time, Yang Dingtian finally saw how she devoured. First, she turned her poison into green energy liquid and then quickly devoured it. The whole process was so fast that Yang Dingtian couldn't even see it clearly. After devouring Wintian's lover, the Naga Shuang glared at Lan Qi with bloodthirsty eyes. She actually wanted to pounce over and bite Lan Qi. The real Naga was like this. When their eyes were red from killing, they would completely lose their minds. Queen Lan Qi was shocked. She immediately circulated her mystic qi and prepared to block the attack. Although Naga Shuang's aura made her heart palpitate, he was still the first generation of new Naga, and his cultivation was much higher than Shuang's. Therefore, he would not be completely subdued by her and would still have room to resist. Shuang, you can't do this, you can't do this. Yang Dingtian said loudly. Then, he carefully stepped forward to gently caress her neck. Ayo! Suddenly, the Naga Shuang let out a roar. Aiming at Yang Dingtian's arm, the Naga Shuang bit down. Ah! Yang Dingtian immediately felt a sharp pain. The Naga's unique poison surged into his body, and Yang Dingtian instantly lost all feeling in his body. Ah! When Naga Shuang had just sucked Yang Dingtian's first mouthful of blood, she suddenly let out a miserable shriek. Her huge body trembled as her body gradually shrunk and turned back into a human. However, she was still bloodthirsty. After Shuang woke up, she stared blankly at the deep wound on Yang Dingtian's arm. Then, she suddenly let out a miserable cry. Kacha! Then, she suddenly bit down on her own snow-white arm. Instantly, her flesh became a mess and blood gushed out. She had bitten Yang Dingtian again, so she didn't know what to do. Therefore, she used self-mutilation to express her guilt and pain. Biting once wasn't enough. She desperately bit her own body. Yang Dingtian was shocked. He hurriedly stepped forward and hugged her delicate body tightly. Then, Shuang began to cry silently. She cried as Yang Dingtian hugged her. The first time she had bitten Yang Dingtian, she desperately apologized and said sorry. This time, she didn't apologize. Instead, she cried herself hoarse. After all, she was a Naga. Although her body was badly mutilated by her own bite, she quickly recovered without any scars. Yang Dingtian used the condensation bead to gently wipe Shuang-er's body, washing her snow-white body clean again. Queen Lan Qi stood guard outside the library with her sword, preventing anyone from seeing anything inside. The Naga Shuang cried for a full quarter of an hour. Then, she raised her breathtakingly beautiful face and said, "Husband, I want to go in and sleep." Then, she kissed Yang Dingtian and went into his spatial ring to sleep. This was the first time the Naga Shuang took the initiative to go in and sleep. Perhaps she didn't want to stay outside anymore. She wanted to sleep all the time so that she wouldn't become violent and bloodthirsty again and bite the person she loved. Although she saved me, I still have to say that in this world, she alone can slaughter everything and destroy the world, Queen Lan Qi said. She's different from the ancient Naga in my impression. Although our ancestors also devoured energy, they still needed to cultivate. They weren't as direct as her, who actually relied on devouring lives to increase their energy. Yang Dingtian said, "I don't know why it's like this, but don't worry, I'll definitely keep an eye on her." Queen Lan Qi nodded and said, "Next time, you can't let her appear in a dangerous situation. Otherwise, if she goes berserk, I'm afraid that even your life will be in danger." Yang Dingtian nodded. This was the second time Shuang had bitten him. The first time, she woke up right after biting him and didn't cause any harm. The second time, not only did she bite him fiercely, but she also directly injected venom. Fortunately, it was Yang Dingtian. If it were anyone else, they would have died long ago. But the third time, whether Shuang-er could wake up before she bit Yang Dingtian to death was really unknown. Therefore, just as Queen Lan Qi said, no matter how dangerous the situation was, perhaps Shuang-er couldn't wake up. Thinking about it, directly devouring the energy essence or hell magic crystals was the most suitable. Shuang would transform while she was asleep. "Let's go. We have to settle the internal problems before dealing with external problems," Queen Lan Qi said. Then, she directly raised her sword and charged out. At this moment, it was a chaotic battle in Monarch City. The rebels and the forces loyal to Queen Lan Qi were fighting fiercely. In fact, there were more people loyal to Queen Lan Qi in Monarch City. However, a large portion of them were guarding the city walls and monitoring the rebels outside. Some were scattered everywhere and didn't gather at all. Although the rebels only had less than 1/3 of them, because they gathered together, they had the upper hand for a while and almost took away Yang Dingtian's lifespan. Meanwhile, Yang Dingtian had also discovered that there were plenty of first-generation Nagas in Monarch City. There were at least a few hundred of them. However, except for Queen Lan Qi, the rest were all spiritual sages. Moreover, even during the battle, many of them still hadn't woken up from their meditation. It wasn't strange when he thought about it. All those who pursued martial arts would definitely go to hand in their marriage and establish their own family instead of staying in Monarch City to serve Queen Lan Qi. Queen Lan Qi brought Yang Dingtian to the entrance of the underground palace. The rebels focused on two directions. One was to chase after Queen Lan Qi, and the other was more to attack the underground palace. This was because hundreds of Naga sages were meditating in the underground palace. A considerable portion of the forces loyal to Queen Lan Qi were guarding the underground palace. This was because to New Naga, the hundreds of meditating sages in the underground palace were even more important than Queen Lan Qi. This was because they represented the future direction of New Naga. When Queen Lan Qi and Yang Dingtian arrived at the underground palace, the battle here had already reached the most critical moment. Thousands of guardians had already died and countless were injured. The rebels had also suffered countless casualties. However, they would soon break through the defense line and rush into the underground palace. Once they rushed into the underground palace, even if there were only one or two of them, they would be able to kill all the meditating Naga sages in the underground palace. This was because meditating Naga sages didn't have any resistance. In fact, Naga sages who studied the spiritual realm were very weak in martial arts. As soon as Queen Lan Qi arrived, she didn't say anything and directly started a massacre. In a short period of time, all the rebels at the entrance of the underground palace were killed, protecting the direction of the underground palace from being broken through. Next, Queen Lan Qi continued to kill. After half a day, she finally killed all the rebels. The entire king's city was filled with corpses and blood flowed like a river. This sudden rebellion was finally completely suppressed. King's city, which originally had 80,000 fake Naga, was now left with less than half. The rest had all died. However, when Queen Lan Qi led Yang Dingtian to the top of King's city again, Bu Yikao, the demon king Wentian, and all the rebel leaders were shocked. Queen Lan Qi looked at Bu Yikao and said, "Your plan has failed. All the rebels have been killed by me." Bu Yikao looked at the demon king Wentian in disbelief and said, "Didn't you say that your poison of nothingness has no cure?" "Absolutely no cure," the demon king Wentian said. "Then, could it be that she wasn't poisoned at all and your lover poisoned her and was discovered?" Bu Yikao asked. The demon king Wentian said, "That's not important anymore. The important thing is that the agreed time of 3 days is up." Yes, the agreed time with the underwater races was up. If they didn't defeat them in 3 days, Bu Yikao would have to retreat. Otherwise, the underwater races would send troops to save the king. Bu Yikao looked at the eastern sky. The sun was about to fall to the end of the world, and the sky was about to turn dark. The Naga army of the seafloor merfolk might already be on the way. The internal strife in King's City didn't kill Queen Lan Qi, and the energy shield still couldn't be opened. In Bu Yikao's opinion, the only way was to retreat. If they didn't retreat, a war would really break out when the merfolk Naga arrived. It would mean a world war in New Naga. This would be a devastating blow to New Naga. And if they retreated, they would return empty-handed. Then, someone would definitely be responsible for this rebellion. Therefore, Bu Yikao would definitely die. When he announced his retreat, it would be time for him to commit suicide. "Mr. Unnamed, I'm actually not afraid of death, but I'm afraid of meaningless death." Bu Yikao said slowly to the demon king Wentian, "You're right. Queen Lan Qi's plan won't work at all. If this continues, the Naga will be destroyed. Unfortunately, the heavens aren't helping me. Even if I'm completely despicable to assassinate the woman I love, I still failed. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens." Bu Yikao slowly pulled out his huge sword and looked up at Queen Lan Qi on King City. Then, he looked at the densely packed Naga rebels behind him. He clearly had 1,000,000 troops, but they were completely useless. Boom boom boom, suddenly, the entire air shook violently. The entire ground trembled and rumbled. The distant plains were suddenly engulfed by huge waves. The waves were hundreds of kilometers long and surged over. The merfolk Naga army had arrived. They could actually leave the sea, but every time they moved out, they were still used to bringing the sea with them. That's right, bringing the sea to land, while their hundreds of thousands of troops were still in the sea. The distant horizon was completely covered by the ocean. Hundreds of thousands of mermaids and mermen were quickly approaching in the waves. After a few days of rebellion, their army finally arrived. Even though they didn't want to come, even though they hoped that Bu Yikao would succeed. The merfolk Naga army didn't directly rush to confront Bu Yikao's army. Instead, they stopped dozens of miles away. Because of the waves, the hundreds of thousands of troops covered the sky and the sun. Their momentum was even greater than the 1,000,000 sea snake Naga rebels. The army didn't want to fight, so they stopped dozens of miles away and waited for Bu Yikao's decision. The final moment has finally arrived. Bu Yikao said slowly, "Sir, you and the patriarchs can bring the sea snake Naga army back to the territory. I'm very sorry, but I can't continue to fight side by side with you." Bu Yikao raised his sword and was about to kill himself and announce a retreat. At this time, the demon king Wentian suddenly said, "Sir, wait a moment. I might be able to open this energy barrier." Bu Yikao said in shock, No, impossible. This energy barrier can't be opened. The Demon King Wentian said, I can only say that it's possible. I can only try. And even if it's opened, there's only a small gap. It should only allow one person to enter. Bu Yicao's eyes lit up, then please, sir, try immediately. Even if I die, I want to die under her sword and not commit suicide out of cowardice. The Demon King Wentian nodded. Whoosh! Wentian suddenly summoned a black flame and a white flame. Then, they condensed together into a colorless flame. Yang Dingtian couldn't be more familiar with the void-splitting flame. This void-splitting flame flew directly to the energy barrier. Whoosh! The void-splitting flame burned the energy barrier. Sure enough, a small hole appeared. The void-splitting flame could indeed tear open the energy barrier, but only by a little. The Demon King Wentian used all his strength and could only make this hole slightly bigger. Then, it was extremely difficult to maintain this small gap. Thank you, sir. Bu Yicao suddenly turned into a stream of light, passed through the small gap in the energy shield, and entered King City. Wentian's body trembled, and the gap in the energy barrier closed again. Bu Yicao looked at Queen Lan Qi and said, Lan Qi, when I came in, I didn't think of leaving alive. How about this, let's have a duel. If you win, I'll kill myself. New Naga will continue on your path. We'll work hard to break through in the spiritual realm. Bu Yicao's voice was very loud, and all the Naga present heard him. He looked at Queen Lan Qi affectionately and said, if you lose, please hand over the scripture pavilion. Then, you can continue to live. How about it? After hearing Bu Yicao's words, all the Naga present were completely silent. No one made a sound. Even the Naga mermaids in the distance didn't have any objections. Instead, their eyes shone with anticipation. The duel would determine the winner. If Bu Yicao lost, he would kill himself, and New Naga would continue to follow Queen Lan Qi's will. If Bu Yicao won, Lan Qi wouldn't have to die. She just had to hand over the scripture pavilion. The entire world was completely silent. All the Naga were waiting for Queen Lan Qi's response. Queen Lan Qi was still so decisive. Without hesitation, she said directly, okay, I agree to the duel. But if I lose, I won't live. I'll die. Bu Yicao was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, okay. Then, within the energy barrier, Queen Lan Qi and Bu Yicao used the final duel to decide the fate of New Naga, or the fate of the entire chaotic world. Chapter 860. In fact, Yang Dingtian really wanted Queen Lan Qi to kill the scourge, the Demon King Wentian. However, this was impossible. In Naga, which had more than 1 million people, they were all biased toward Bu Yicao, the tragic loser. In their eyes, Bu Yicao had died for them. Therefore, if Queen Lan Qi killed the Demon King Wentian, she would only arouse public anger. Yang Dingtian used the void-splitting fire and opened a very small entrance in the energy shield with great difficulty. Queen Lan Qi turned into a stream of light and directly entered. 15 minutes later, she closed the energy shield, and Yang Dingtian entered the royal city. After entering the royal city, Yang Dingtian immediately handed the cube of the sutra depository to Queen Lan Qi. Queen Lan Qi looked at Yang Dingtian and was silent for a moment. Then, she took back the energy body of the sutra depository and put it into her body. She said, I want to drink wine. Get drunk with me. On the table, there was a sumptuous meal and countless fine wines. Yang Dingtian and Queen Lan Qi didn't know how much wine they had drunk. Moreover, the two of them deliberately didn't use energy to make themselves drunk. The two of them didn't say anything. They just kept drinking, and drinking. After drinking a lot of wine, Queen Lan Qi suddenly said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, do you think I'm wrong? Is my insistence wrong? Yang Dingtian said, I'm not qualified to judge whether you're right or not. But in my hometown, there's a saying that the truth is often in the hands of a few people. Queen Lan Chi was stunned after hearing this. She said, then is this saying the truth? Yes, this saying is the truth. In my world, it has been verified countless times. This saying is the truth, Yang Dingtian said. If this sentence doesn't make you feel at ease, there's another sentence. If what you do makes your enemy feel uneasy, it proves that you're doing the right thing. Lan Chi said, Bu Yikao is not my enemy. But the demon king Wentian is. Yang Dingtian said, Bu Yikao's rebellion was largely instigated by the demon king Wentian. Otherwise, he would have continued to wait. Queen Lan Chi thought for a while and nodded. Yes, you're right. If it can make the enemy uneasy, it must be the right thing to do. This statement seemed to have allowed Queen Lan Chi to obtain some relief. Subsequently, she continued to drink. Yang Dingtian also accompanied her to drink. Then, the two of them were completely drunk and passed out. It was common to have sex after drinking. But such a melodramatic incident didn't happen to Yang Dingtian. Even though the two of them, Queen Lan Chi and Lan Chi, Lan Chi and Lan Chi, Lan lands. Even though Queen Lan Chi's body was pressing down on Yang Dingtian's body. Her queen and her she was her she her then her was a she king with his mind full of worries. It was very difficult for Yang Dingtian to have any desires. After Queen Lan Chi woke up, she got up from Yang Dingtian's body and shook her slightly dazed head. Her exquisite hairstyle was messed up and her hair was disheveled. She took a glance at Yang Dingtian before she staggered and left. Similarly, she didn't say anything. Yang Dingtian also got up and patted his head to get rid of his hangover. Soon, a few unfamiliar maids came in and bathed and changed Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian noticed that these maids barely had human characteristics. This was already the third generation of Naga. Too many post-era Nagas had died in the rebellion in the king's city, making it difficult to find maids with a complete human appearance. After bathing and changing his clothes, Queen Lan Chi came again not long after. Yang Dingtian was slightly surprised. He originally thought that Queen Lan Chi wouldn't appear for at least a few days. Who knew that she would come after taking a bath and changing her clothes? She was wearing a very simple snow-white dress, and her hair wasn't even combed. Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, can you accompany me to the depths of the world's end? Queen Lan Chi asked. Okay. Yang Dingtian nodded. Then, Yang Dingtian and Queen Lan Chi rode a huge white eagle and flew toward the eastern end of the world. A few hours later, they arrived at the end of the world thousands of miles away. They saw the magnificent waterfall again. They watched the endless seawater rush into the endless abyss and disappear without a trace. In front of them was the endless void. However, Queen Lan Chi didn't stop them. Instead, she continued forward. Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, do you know? At the peak of the Naga Empire, there weren't more than 30,000 Naga people in the world, Queen Lan Chi said. Therefore, in the ancient Naga Empire, most of the tens of billions of subjects were sea serpents, mermaids, and other underwater races. The number of Naga people was less than 1 in a million. Of course, the ancient Naga not only massacred the other underwater civilizations in the world, but even the sea serpents and mermaids were almost wiped out. Yang Dingtian had seen this scene before. In the underwater maze city, a spiritual Naga instantly turned all the sea serpents in the city into stone. Why? Yang Dingtian asked. The sea serpents and mermaids can be considered the ancestors of Naga. Queen Lan Chi said, they thought that they could stop the apocalypse from coming. Of course, they couldn't stop it in the end. Then, Queen Lan Chi said, at that time, the Naga Empire spanned hundreds of thousands of miles, and its territory was hundreds or thousands of times larger than it is now. However, only tens of thousands of Naga people lived in it. Now, in just 10,000 miles of New Naga, there are millions of Naga people living in it. Although we aren't the real Naga, this 10,000 miles of new Naga is really too small. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I know. Millions of Naga Empire's descendants can easily destroy this new Naga Empire, but they can also easily rebuild it. New Naga is really too small for you. Yes, this is a prison, Queen Lan Qi said. Yang Dingtian didn't say anything, but he agreed with Queen Lan Qi's words. This was a prison. However, this is a prison. That's correct, Queen Lan Qi said. We were imprisoned because we committed a crime. Is it that easy to leave the prison? Once the sentence is over and the reformation is over, we can leave. How can we break out by force? I am clearly right. Why did I become an absolute loner? Yang Dingtian said slowly, because this world is a prison. All the Naga people are prisoners, and you are the only guard. Naturally, you are on opposing sides. From the standpoint of a prisoner, of course, rebellion are the right thing to do. Queen Lan Qi didn't say anything, but there was no doubt that her body and mind were greatly damaged because of this rebellion. Then, the two of them rode the white eagle and kept moving forward. They moved forward in the endless void. New Naga behind them could no longer be seen. Everything around them was nothingness. They moved forward 5,000 miles. 10,000 miles. 20,000 miles. 50,000 miles. 100,000 miles. 200,000 miles. 300,000 miles. It was still the endless void. It had been nearly half a month since they left the world's end and entered the void. This was the endless void. It was an endless cycle and duplication. There was no end. Yang Dingtian had a feeling. It was like riding a flying mount in World of Warcraft, flying toward the endless sea. However, in World of Warcraft, one would quickly get tired and die. Finally, Queen Lan Qi suddenly said, the farthest I went was here. Yang Dingtian didn't say anything. Queen Lan Qi suddenly asked, say, if we continue forward, will we encounter Yin Zhou? Yin Zhou was his lover. Because he and Queen Lan Qi were on different sides, they ended the engagement. Thus, his body entered the void of the world's end and completely disappeared. We won't, Yang Dingtian said. Yes, we won't. He's already dead, Queen Lan Qi said. Alright, let's go back. Then, Queen Lan Qi and Yang Dingtian rode the white eagle back. On the way back, Queen Lan Qi suddenly said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, is this new Naga? Yang Dingtian knew what she was going to say, but he shook his head and said, I don't know if this is new Naga. It shouldn't be. This is the void, Queen Lan Qi said. Since this is not new Naga, it is the void. Then, all the rules should also be the void. Yang Dingtian was silent. Then, she placed her palm on her chest and energy began to condense. The golden cube of the scripture pavilion condensed in her palm. She looked at the cube and said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, there should be half a month before we return to New Naga. So, you only have half a month. Then, Queen Lan Qi handed the cube of the scripture pavilion to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian took it and said, Lan Qi, are you sure you want to do this? Yes, Queen Lan Qi said. Because you are the savior. But my human kingdom isn't that important to New Naga, Yang Dingtian said. Queen Lan Qi said, I vaguely feel that you might not only save the human kingdom. I don't want to find that 1,000 years later, or 2,000 years later, we have broken through in the spiritual domain, left this prison, and entered the chaotic world, only to find that it has become a dead land. The entire world has been completely destroyed. Yang Dingtian bowed deeply to Queen Lan Qi. Then, he sat down cross-legged and held the cube of energy in his hand. He wanted to enter the scripture pavilion to search for the 5th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship, the greater space technique. He had half a month. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and slowly injected his divine sense into the cube of the scripture pavilion. Saint of the Nine-Yang Sword. Chapter 861. Originally, Yang Dingtian thought that it would be very difficult to enter the cube of the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion. However, Yang Dingtian entered the cube of the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion almost effortlessly. This kind of success almost made him feel stunned. This Hidden Scriptures Pavilion was so important. Shouldn't there be countless passwords? Shouldn't there be an extremely mysterious and difficult secret door? How did he get in so easily? After entering, Yang Dingtian was completely stunned again. An incomparably huge world came directly to him. After Yang Dingtian's divine sense entered the cube of the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion, he immediately entered a spiritual illusion. This was an incomparably huge Hidden Scriptures Pavilion. How big was it exactly? God knows, maybe a few million square meters, maybe tens of millions of square meters. In short, after entering, it was completely like a vast ocean. The number of scrolls and books inside was completely astronomical, like the stars in the sky. Previously, Yang Dingtian was still thinking that if he was able to enter smoothly, half a month would be more than enough. Now, it seemed that half a month was completely not enough. This was because there were too many scrolls and books here. It was not just tens of thousands or millions, but tens of millions or more. Inside the incomparably huge Hidden Scriptures Pavilion, there were layers upon layers of shelves filled with countless scrolls. Among these countless scrolls, it was extremely difficult to find the pig-slaying swordsmanship. And the most important thing was that these scrolls were not divided into categories. Yang Dingtian had to start searching from the first scroll. Picking up the first scroll and looking at it, he was very glad. The words on it were recognized by Yang Dingtian, which was the common language of the chaotic continent. In this regard, the Naga race was very impressive. The common language of this world was actually the common language of the human continent. As a half-god race, the Naga race was the ruler of the world. In fact, they could have invented their own language, which was absolutely superior. However, they did not. Instead, they directly used the common language of the human countries. The scroll in Yang Dingtian's hand at this time turned out to be the first era of climate science. Yang Dingtian flipped through it slightly. The so-called first era turned out to be something that happened hundreds of millions of years ago. Yang Dingtian took a closer look and found that it happened to be the time of the hard rock plains. And this scroll was over 1 million words. Then, Yang Dingtian began to pick up the second scroll. When he opened it, he saw that it was the double sun and double moon of the first era. This scroll also had a few million words. Then, Yang Dingtian picked up the third scroll and opened it. It was the material science of the first era. Yang Dingtian continued to pick up the scrolls below and discovered that they were all from the first era. He knew that this Hidden Scriptures Pavilion was not purely a martial arts secret book room. It was too narrow-minded to say that. There were definitely martial arts scrolls here, but the proportion was very, very small. This sutra depository actually contained the entire history of civilization, natural history, and philosophy of the entire chaos world. In short, all the content of the chaotic world was in this Hidden Scriptures Pavilion. The content of these scrolls was not only about the Naga race, but also the crystallization of all the intelligent races in the history of the chaotic world. However, the Naga race spent countless years to gather all this wisdom and knowledge. Yang Dingtian understood. When the world was destroyed 10,000 years ago, the Naga race thought that this was the complete destruction of the chaotic world. There would not be any civilization left. There would not be any living land left. Therefore, they did their best to isolate a space of 10,000 miles. It was independent of the chaotic world and avoided the great nirvana. The price was the death of the entire Naga race. The 10,000 miles of new Naga's territory was exchanged with the lives of all the demigods of Naga. Then, the ancient Naga race hid all the knowledge, wisdom, and civilization of the chaotic world in this Hidden Scriptures Pavilion cube. Passing down the legacy was equivalent to if one day Earth was completely destroyed. Then humans would definitely build a huge spaceship and put a small number of elite humans in it to sail into the depths of the universe. And all the history, material, nature, philosophy, art, and other knowledge and civilization of Earth would be gathered into a digital library and sailed into the universe together. Even if the humans on Earth were to perish, the civilization of Earth would be preserved. Therefore, this new Naga race was equivalent to a spaceship independent of the world. This hidden scriptures pavilion contained all the records of the chaotic world. No wonder it was so vast. No wonder this hidden scriptures pavilion existed in the form of an energy cube. Because in the hearts of the ancient Naga race, this cube might be passed down for hundreds of millions of years, and any real scrolls or hidden scriptures pavilion building would turn to ashes at most in a few tens of thousands of years. Only the energy cube might exist for countless years. If Yang Dingtian had time, he would definitely carefully read all the contents in the hidden scriptures pavilion. Unfortunately, he did not have time. He was very pressed. Therefore, he could only look for the pig-slaying swordsmanship. This hidden scriptures pavilion was not divided into categories, but according to the span of time. The scrolls of the first era were at the front. Then, the scrolls before the Great Nirvana Age would definitely be at the back. Therefore, Yang Dingtian flew to the back of the hidden scriptures pavilion and began to search, starting from the last scroll. How far was it to fly from the front of the hidden scriptures pavilion to the back? It was a full 100 miles. That's right, it was 100 miles. This hidden scriptures pavilion was even bigger than Yang Dingtian had imagined. The number of scrolls here was even more than Yang Dingtian had imagined. Yang Dingtian picked up the last scroll. When he opened it, his body trembled slightly because this was a declaration of destruction. On it, there were countless Naga emblems and signatures. All of them were bloody signatures. These were the signatures of 30,000 Naga before they died. That's right. This new Naga that was tens of thousands of miles wide was completely isolated and surrounded by an incomparably powerful energy. And this energy was produced by the deaths of the 30,000 demigods of Naga. The 30,000 Naga did not die after the arrival of the Great Nirvana Age. Instead, before the Great Nirvana Age, they chose to self-destruct and turn into ashes. Their deaths caused the front part of the energy that could destroy the world to burst forth. It was the most powerful energy in history that had completely isolated the territory of 10,000 miles. In fact, the incomparably rich profound chi of new Naga was left behind after the ancient Naga was turned into ashes, including this exuberant life force. In other words, every inch of land, every flower, and every plant in new Naga was the flesh and blood of the ancient Naga. At the end of the 30,000 emblems, the ancient Naga did not say too much. For the future Naga, he only said a few words. My descendants will not walk my path. While Yang Dingtian was shocked, he was also slightly gratified. Although the Naga had destroyed the world, they finally repented before they died. And although Queen Lan Chi was opposed to the entire new Naga and was completely isolated, there were still 30,000 ancestors who stood with her. The entire continent of the Naga Empire, flowers, and rivers stood with her. Next, Yang Dingtian continued to look for the pig-slaying swordsmanship scroll. He picked up the second-to-last scroll. On the scroll was written, Introduction to Spatial Isolation. This was what the new Naga people dreamed of. Yang Dingtian could not help but be filled with interest. But after opening it, Yang Dingtian found that it was a complete mess. Inputting profound chi was completely useless. It was completely unreadable. It was purely a pile of gibberish. It was not the common language of the chaotic world, nor was it the common code of the secret manual. Yang Dingtian was stunned. Could this be a mistake? Was there a mistake when the ancient Naga recorded these words? Soon, Yang Dingtian denied this point. Because the third-to-last scroll, the fourth-to-last scroll, and even most of the scrolls after that were all gibberish. Yang Dingtian understood that this was not gibberish. It was a precautionary measure of the Naga people. The contents were all encrypted and could not be read or opened. Only when the new Naga people's spirit broke through to a certain level could these scrolls be opened. In other words, it did not matter if the hidden sutra pavilion was opened. Because the new Naga people could not read or practice. There was only one way to practice, and that was to break through to a certain level of spirit. However, in this way, Yang Dingtian was in big trouble. If the new Naga people could not read it, Yang Dingtian could not read it either. Now, Yang Dingtian could only hope that the pig-slaying swordsmanship was different. Next, he only did one thing. He kept opening the scrolls and putting them back. Opening and putting them back. Just like that, he kept repeating it. Soon, a day and a night passed. Yang Dingtian had flipped through tens of thousands of scrolls, and only about 1% of them could be read, and all of them had nothing to do with martial arts. Yang Dingtian did not find the fifth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. The next day, Yang Dingtian flipped through tens of thousands of scrolls again, but still did not find the fifth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. The third day. The fourth day. The fifth day. The sixth day. 11 days passed. Yang Dingtian had already flipped through hundreds of thousands of scrolls, but still did not find the fifth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. He looked at the vast number of scrolls and almost lost confidence. If they were to continue flipping like this, it would really take forever. Half a month's time was really not enough at all. Moreover, this was an illusion, and there was no way to get the help of countless resentful spirits. Even if there was, countless resentful spirits were illiterate. In this way, Yang Dingtian was completely mechanically flipping through the scrolls. Just when Yang Dingtian was almost numb. Suddenly, a huge line of words appeared directly in front of Yang Dingtian's eyes. Pig-slaying swordsmanship, 5th stage, Great Space Technique. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian was so excited that he almost fainted. He found it. Just when he was completely numb, the pig-slaying swordsmanship suddenly appeared in front of him. Chapter 862. Yang Dingtian held back the ecstasy in his heart and couldn't wait to open the scroll of the fifth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Then, he was completely dumbfounded. Like the previous scrolls, it was a pile of garbled code that could not be deciphered at all. Of course, it didn't matter if one could read or not. In fact, no one in the human countries could read the scrolls, let alone write them. Only a few spiritual masters could write a small number of spiritual scrolls. The logic of spiritual scrolls and martial arts scrolls was completely different. The martial arts scrolls were countless times more complicated. Therefore, when one got a scroll, one didn't need to read it at all. One only needed to input chi and divine sense to practice it. It was like a computer user downloading a software. He only needed to click on the install button to run it. He didn't need to understand the code at all. Therefore, Yang Dingtian tried to input chi and divine sense. Unsurprisingly, he was rejected directly. Yang Dingtian didn't guess wrongly. These encrypted scrolls weren't just different in terms of simple codes. They were encrypted from the very foundation. Not only could one not decipher it, but one could also not practice it at all. This was the most tragic thing. It was like finally getting a stunning beauty and was about to push her down. In the end, he found that she was wearing impenetrable chastity iron pants and couldn't enter her at all. Yang Dingtian had gone through a lot of hardships to get the fifth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, but he found that he couldn't practice it. He quickly suppressed his complicated thoughts and tried to calm himself down. There was no doubt that this scroll of the fifth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship was written by Shiwu Piaoyan. However, the reason why he encrypted it was definitely not to guard against Yang Dingtian, but to imitate the future Naga. The fifth stage was directly related to the Great Space Technique, which was too important for new Naga. Although the future Naga might not be able to practice it directly, they could decipher the contents and obtain the essence of the Great Space Technique. Once the future Naga obtained the Great Space Technique, they could jump out of the confinement space of new Naga. Then, the whole world would face a catastrophe again. In this case, Shiwu Piaoyan must have some measures to allow the cultivator of the pig-slaying swordsmanship to practice it. There must be a back door to this scroll of the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Then, what was this back door? The pig-slaying swordsmanship was completely different from the other scrolls. After learning it, it would turn into ashes, so it was absolutely unique. Therefore, this back door must have targeted the characteristics of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Then, what were the uniqueness of the pig-slaying swordsmanship? Pig-slaying swordsmanship. Yin-Yang Qi transformation technique. Yin and Yang reversal. Chaos Qi. The first thing that came to Yang Dingtian's mind was the Chaos Qi. He knew that of all the people he had met, he was the only one who possessed primal chaos profound Qi. Hence, Yang Dingtian poured the Chaos Mystic Qi into the rank 5 scroll. There was no response. The scroll still refused to allow Yang Dingtian to enter. It seemed like Yang Dingtian might not have encountered anyone who possessed the primal Chaos Mystic Qi, but it wasn't unique. To the extremely powerful Naga race, they might have already reversed their Yin and Yang and possessed the primal Chaos Mystic Qi. Then, Yang Dingtian tried to inject both Yin and Yang Qi into the scroll at the same time, but the scroll of the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship still had no reaction. Yang Dingtian tried to run the Yin and Yang Qi transformation technique, but it still didn't work. In the end, Yang Dingtian even foolishly performed a set of pig-slaying swordsmanship on the scroll. Of course, it still didn't work. Thus, Yang Dingtian was really at his wit's end. This didn't work, that didn't work. How could he enter the scroll of the 5th stage? Yang Dingtian racked his brains, but he couldn't think of a way at all. Next, he tried countless methods, many of which were completely mysterious, but without exception, all of them failed. He was really at his wit's end. Thus, Yang Dingtian forced himself to calm down again and consider the problem from Shiwu Piaoyan's point of view. Shiwu Piaoyan must give the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship to his successor, and he must ensure that it would only be given to his successor. If the Chaos Qi was not safe, the Yin and Yang dual attributes were not safe, and the Yin and Yang Qi transformation technique was not safe, then what was completely safe? What if he wrote the last code of the 2nd volume of the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship? In this way, he could completely prove that he was his successor. This was because the code of the 4th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship was incomparably large. The code of the deepest level could only be seen after entering the illusion. Fortunately, when Yang Dingtian was free, he had been studying the code of the pig-slaying swordsmanship scroll, especially the last code of the 4th stage. He didn't know how many times he had studied it. Thus, Yang Dingtian quickly used the Chaos Qi and entered the last code of the 4th stage on the scroll of the 5th stage. Yang Dingtian wrote very quickly. In just a quarter of an hour, he had completely entered thousands of codes. Boom! Suddenly, Yang Dingtian felt a golden light flash in front of his eyes. Yang Dingtian was ecstatic. This really worked. Suddenly, these golden lights quickly condensed into a figure. It was the figure that Yang Dingtian was very familiar with, Shiwu Piaoyan, the ancient savior, his real mentor. Yang Dingtian was ecstatic and shouted, "Teacher!" At this time, Shiwu Piaoyan's hair and beard were all white. His appearance was completely different from when he was at the 4th stage. There were even deep wrinkles on his face. It was as if many years had passed. It was unknown how long it took him to write the 5th stage. Shiwu Piaoyan smiled slightly and said, "Before entering the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, tell me, where did I write the 4th stage?" Yang Dingtian was stunned. It was a double password. The underwater maze of the sea serpent Rakshasa Empire, Yang Dingtian said. Shiwu Piaoyan smiled and said, "After leaving the underwater maze, where did I go?" Yang Dingtian said, "You were going to the Naga Empire, but the Naga Empire was in another world, so you had to study space techniques." So you went to the border of the abyss to study the void beasts there. Then, Yang Dingtian said, Teacher, it is obvious that you had already arrived in the Naga Empire before you had studied space techniques. Shiwu Piaoyan laughed happily and said, You are indeed my successor, ha ha ha. Then, Shiwu Piaoyan asked, Good boy, tell me, what is your name? Where are you from? Yang Dingtian was speechless. He didn't know how many times he had answered this question. Every time he learned the pig-slaying swordsmanship, he had to repeat it. However, Yang Dingtian still told him in detail everything that had happened since he transmigrated from Earth to the present. He was particularly clear and detailed about the incident in the Yin-Yang Mirror and the Yin sect. Of course, it was different from before. This time, Yang Dingtian emphasized on Demon King Wen Tian's matters. There was also the Little Western Paradise, the second Dark Domain, the third Dark Domain, and the new Naga Empire. It took more than 2 hours for Yang Dingtian to explain everything clearly. After listening, Shiwu Piaoyan let out a deep sigh. Child, I really can't imagine that you have experienced so much hardship for the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Shiwu Piaoyan said, Fortunately, you have great luck and a strong will. Otherwise, it would be impossible to reach New Naga. Yang Dingtian said, But the Demon King Wentian is also here. Shiwu Piaoyan said, This person is very amazing. His wisdom is far better than yours, and his will is not inferior to yours. He is definitely your greatest enemy. According to his plan, if he succeeds, he will definitely be able to destroy the whole world. Yang Dingtian said, Fortunately, he will be trapped in the confinement space of New Naga forever and can't leave. Shiwu Piaoyan said, Are you sure that this is his real body? Yang Dingtian was silent and said, I'm sure that this is his soul. But I don't know if this is his real body. Shiwu Piaoyan said, Child, based on your description of him, I feel that this person is definitely not as simple as you think. From the Underworld Empire to the Little Western Paradise, he has never been defeated. Then in the New Naga Empire, could it be that he failed so easily? Yang Dingtian said, But I really can't think of anything else he has in New Naga. I think that as long as he is completely trapped here, everything will be over. Moreover, the space techniques in the energy body of this Sutra Pavilion are all encrypted. Unless the spirit of the future Naga people breaks through to a certain extent, it will never be unlocked. And by the time they break through, I don't know how many thousands of years it will take. Shiwu Piaoyan said, I hope so. Yang Dingtian suddenly remembered the second dark realm and the incomparably powerful stone man entrusted to him. He immediately asked, By the way, Master, do you remember one of your followers? A stone man, you taught him language and thought, and then you left him in the second dark realm. Shiwu Piaoyan shook his head and said, Silly child, before I wrote the 5th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship, the great nirvana had not happened and the second dark realm had not been formed. How could I have met the stone man? That should have happened after I left the Naga Empire and went to the dark realm. Yang Dingtian asked, You went to the dark realm? Shiwu Piaoyan said, Yes, I stayed in the Naga Empire for decades and studied the space technique with countless Naga wise men and wrote the 5th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship. And I learned the truth that the world had been destroyed many times. So in order to further save the world and to find out the truth of the world's destruction, I decided to go to the world of death, which is the dark realm you mentioned. Yang Dingtian asked, But, you didn't get the void-splitting fire. How did you pass through the abyss border and reach the Naga Empire? Shiwu Piaoyan said, To go to the Naga Empire, you don't need to pass through the abyss border, nor do you need the void-splitting fire. The Naga Empire is at the bottom of the sea. The reason why no one has discovered it is that the Naga Empire has completely blocked all contact with the outside world. Yang Dingtian asked, Then, in the Naga Empire, did you find out the reason for the world's destruction? Shiwu Piaoyan said, On the surface, of course, it was because the Naga race was extremely powerful, which caused the world to be unbalanced and exceeded the burden of the chaotic world, so it led to the great nirvana. But I don't know the deeper and more direct reasons. So, I decided to go to the dark realm you mentioned to study it. Yang Dingtian suddenly thought of a question and asked, Master, I find that you have aged a lot. After you finished writing the 4th stage, how long did it take you to write the 5th stage? 139 years, Shiwu Piaoyan said. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian was silent, and infinite admiration surged in his heart. A person, in order to save the world, wrote the greatest scroll in history. It took hundreds of years to write the 1st stage. Master, will there be a 6th stage? Yang Dingtian asked. Shiwu Piaoyan said, there will be. Because the 5th stage is not enough to save the world. I hope that after discovering the most direct and specific reason for the world's destruction, I can write the 6th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship, so as to completely save the world and put an end to the great nirvana. I used to think that the world was completely destroyed after my great nirvana. Fortunately, there was still a last piece of living land left. Yang Dingtian said, but, if there is another great nirvana, the last piece of living land will be completely destroyed, and the entire chaotic world will be completely dead. So, the heavy responsibility of saving the world completely falls on you. Shiwu Piaoyan said, if you fail, the chaotic world will be completely destroyed. Yang Dingtian fell into silence again. Shiwu Piaoyan said, well, child. Learn the 5th stage of the space technique first. Win the great war of the evil ways first. Yes. Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yang Dingtian sat down cross-legged, waiting for Shiwu Piaoyan to teach him the pig-killing swordsmanship's great space technique. First of all, let me reiterate that the great space technique of the 5th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship is beyond the scope of martial arts. Whether you can learn it or not depends entirely on your comprehension. It has little to do with your Xian Meridian's talent. Shiwu Piaoyan said, those with high comprehension ability may learn it in a short time. Those with low comprehension ability will definitely not be able to learn it for the rest of their lives. Yes, Master. Yang Dingtian said. Shiwu Piaoyan said, fortunately, you came from another world, so your thinking is very detached. Otherwise, if you were born in the chaotic world, no matter how high your talent is, you wouldn't be able to learn the 5th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship. Now I finally understand why I didn't pass the pig-killing swordsmanship to the Shiwu clan. It's because they can't learn it because they are from the chaotic world. Therefore, I can only write a simplified low-level version of the swaying calamity crossing sword. Then, Shiwu Piaoyan's eyes fell on Yang Dingtian's face and said, I thought of another thing. Maybe it's not an accident that you came to the chaotic world from another world. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's body shook violently. Well, let's start. Shiwu Piaoyan said, the first move of the great space technique is called space isolation. Yang Dingtian suddenly pricked up his ears. This space isolation sounded similar to the space isolation of the invisibility technique, but it was completely different. Space isolation was much more mysterious. It was the most mysterious and profound thing in the world, which had transcended martial arts. Chapter 863. The first move, space isolation. Why do you have to learn the first move, space isolation? Because the space door created by the second move has to be placed in a completely isolated space. Otherwise, it will disappear as soon as it appears. Shiwu Piaoyan said, child, let me ask you, what does space isolation mean? It steals a space. Yang Dingtian said, for example, in a 10 square meter room, 1 square meter is stolen, but you can't see or feel it at all. That 1 square meter is in this room, but you can't find it at all. Of course, this square meter is the name of our Earth. Yes, you are very smart. Shiwu Piaoyan said, I am really looking forward to the next learning. Then, how do you think you should steal this space? Yang Dingtian fell into deep thought, then shook his head and said, I don't know. Teacher, but I know a kind of stealth mystic skill, which is also in an isolated space. No creature can find it except the undead. Shiwu Piaoyan said, show it to me. Yang Dingtian immediately displayed the stealth mystic skill and disappeared completely in the illusion. Yes, this hidden scriptures pavilion was an illusion, but the stealth mystic skill was also a kind of energy technique, so it was still effective here. Shiwu Piaoyan laughed and said, "Child, I can still see you. Although your mystic skill is quite mysterious, it is not a real space technique, but a pseudo-space technique. You are not in an isolated space, but a mirror effect similar to space. Do you understand?" Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, "It is like using a few mirrors to block a certain space, but the mirrors can project the light behind, so it creates the stealth effect." "Yes." Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Of course, it has already begun to involve space techniques. Even in my era, your mystic skill was very amazing. However, a powerful spirit master at my level would be able to easily discover it." Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "I understand. I will be careful in the future." It turned out that the stealth mystic skill that he had always been proud of was not a real isolated space. But it was also true. If it was a real isolated space, he wouldn't be able to reach in and touch things inside. This was just a spatial mirror effect. "Alright, child, tell me, what do you mean by space isolation?" Shiwu Piaoyan asked. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and then shook his head. Even the Naga of the later era could not understand such a profound thing, let alone Yang Dingtian. "Silly child, you have been imprisoned by your own thoughts," Shiwu Piaoyan said with a smile. "You must understand. Think boldly and let go of all your imaginations. No matter how absurd they are, it doesn't matter." Suddenly, Yang Dingtian recalled a joke from Earth. At that time, the Hadron Collision experiment was being conducted in Europe. Many people joked that it wouldn't create a portal or a black hole. "It's not that you don't know," said Shiwu Piaoyan. "You're very open-minded, but you don't dare to say anything. Just say whatever you want." Therefore, Yang Dingtian boldly said, "Black hole, devour everything." Shiwu Piaoyan suddenly clapped his hands. "Yes." Shiwu Piaoyan praised. "Son, although there is no such thing as a black hole in the chaotic world, it is still a black hole. But I immediately understood what you said. This is because wisdom is interconnected. As for how to isolate space and how to find your so-called black hole, I walked hundreds of thousands of miles and searched for it for 8 years. In the end, I found it in the celestial Red Sea. I've been to the celestial Red Sea. It is a forbidden area of energy. The seawater there contains dark crystals that can form black holes," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes, where have you been? After the Great Nirvana, it still exists." Shiwu Piaoyan was surprised. "Then do you know? Perhaps the deepest secret of this world is hidden under the celestial Red Sea." "Evil energy," Yang Dingtian said, "the celestial Red Sea was polluted by evil spirits, which is why it became a forbidden area of energy. In other words, the so-called energy black holes and dark crystals are pollutants of evil spirits." Suddenly, Shiwu Piaoyan was silent. He looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief and muttered to himself, "Son, you have only been in this world for a few years. But your understanding of this most profound knowledge has exceeded my 100 years. Could it be that the transcendental thinking from a different world is so amazing?" After a sigh, Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Let's continue. If you want to isolate space, you must go to the celestial Red Sea and extract a dark crystal from the endless seawater. Then, it will evolve into an energy body and use this energy body to isolate a space. It will devour everything in this space. Then, this space will be stolen and disappear. Do you understand?" Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "I understand." Shiwu Piaoyan laughed and said, "And you just told me that you used the dark flame to devour the dark crystal and create a new dark flame. This is really heaven's will, ha ha ha." Suddenly, Shiwu Piaoyan let out an incomparably carefree laugh. Yang Dingtian suddenly said with difficulty, "Teacher, but my darkness mystic flame has already entered a complete hibernation. It has devoured countless dark crystals, the essence of the fallen silver dragon, and countless Naga deep-sea black poison. What? Shiwu Piaoyan let out a sharp cry and said, "Why didn't you say it just now?" Yang Dingtian said, "There are too many things, and this matter is very important. I need to tell you specifically. By the way, that dark green dark flame has now become a giant dragon, entrenched in the depths of my sea of qi. At this time, it has fallen into complete dormancy." Giant dragon. Giant dragon. Shiwu Piaoyan's figure began to tremble. Although it was an illusion spiritual body, his face was still pale. "What's wrong, teacher?" "Teacher?" Yang Dingtian asked. Shiwu Piaoyan was suffocated for a while, then waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Let's wait and see. Now, it's not the time for you to know." Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly trembled. Why did this sound so scary? Could it be that this dark green dragon was a disaster? Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Your dark flame is completely dormant and can't be awakened?" "Yes, master." Yang Dingtian said, "Last time, it resisted an attack that was more than 100 times stronger than me, so it fell into a deep sleep." Immediately after, Yang Dingtian asked, "Teacher, without the darkness mystic flame, does it mean that the subsequent cultivation cannot be carried out?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Fortunately, I made sufficient preparations at that time. I thought that my successor might have a heaven and earth mystic flame, but he might not have the dark crystal. And for the purpose of research, I collected a lot of dark crystals in the celestial Red Sea and used a lot in New Naga. But there are still a lot left, and one of them is sealed in this scroll." Yang Dingtian suddenly said in astonishment, "Master, can the dark crystal be sealed in an energy body?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Of course, the dark crystal is a kind of energy body, and it may not necessarily be a solid substance." Then, Shiwu Piaoyan stretched out his hand, and an energy jade box appeared in his hand. It was indeed a dark crystal, but this dark crystal was not a solid crystal, but a kind of jumping energy body, a bit like a flame. "Master, what is the energy level of this dark crystal? How much water of the celestial Red Sea was used to refine it?" Yang Dingtian asked. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "An astronomical number, much more than the dark crystals you have swallowed in the past." Yang Dingtian suddenly smacked his tongue and said, Then I probably can't bear it. "I'm here, what are you worried about?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, and then he handed over the energy jade box. Yang Dingtian took the energy jade box and looked at the dark crystal rising inside. Only God knew how much energy it had. Shiwu Piaoyan said with certainty that it was bigger than the dark crystals he had swallowed in the past. Previously, when he swallowed the dark crystal, Yang Dingtian's body was shattered, and the whole world changed dramatically. However, this was the scripture pavilion of the ancient Naga, and beside him was Shiwu Piaoyan's spiritual body. Although he didn't know what Shiwu Piaoyan's cultivation level was, he must have been at the demigod realm, because more than 100 years before he wrote the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, he was already the number 1 in the ancient human kingdom. He took a deep breath. Yang Dingtian began to devour the dark crystal. Whoosh! The endless dark crystal suddenly drilled into his xian veins and poured into his sea of qi. In an instant, Yang Dingtian's inner world seemed to have completely entered the end of the world. Boom! In an instant, almost in an instant, he was about to be completely annihilated. The energy level of this dark crystal was too powerful. So much so that his body didn't even crack and burn, and he was about to be annihilated. However, an incomparably powerful energy suddenly came crashing down, forcefully blocking the destructive energy of the dark crystal. Then, at this moment, the dark green dragon in the depths of Yang Dingtian's sea of qi suddenly woke up. Seeing the dark crystal, it suddenly seemed to have gone completely crazy. The terrifying dragon stretched out countless tentacles, and a huge dragon head also suddenly emerged from the depths of Yang Dingtian's sea of qi. It didn't even care that Yang Dingtian would be directly smashed to pieces like this. Ha 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 ha. The dark green dragon laughed wildly. Boom boom boom. Yang Dingtian's sea of qi was completely turned upside down. The dark green dragon crazily devoured the dark crystal with incomparable greed. At this time, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi was fortunately suppressed by Shiwu Piaoyan's energy. Otherwise, it would have been shattered and turned into ashes. At this moment, Shiwu Piaoyan suddenly stopped the output of the dark crystal, and then his spiritual energy suddenly drilled into Yang Dingtian's sea of qi, confronting the dark green dragon. When the dark green dragon saw the intruder, it instantly opened its mouth, wanting to tear and devour frantically. I don't know if your existence is a blessing or a curse. I know that in the future, you will be so powerful that even I can't catch up to you. But now, you are still not my opponent. Shiwu Piaoyan said coldly to the dark green dragon, you are still in your embryonic form. Since you are entrenched in my disciple's body and he gave birth to you, I will take it as the will of heaven. No matter what the consequences are, I accept it. Now, you and I make a deal. The dark green dragon stared at Shiwu Piaoyan with incomparable ferocity. It resisted the desire to crush this huge spiritual energy and slowly nodded. I can continue to inject the dark crystal for you to devour and make you stronger, but in exchange, you must split out an independent dark profound flame for my disciple to use, Shiwu Piaoyan said. The dark green dragon suddenly roared. Split out the dark profound flame from its body. Easier said than done. Dragons were the greediest race in this world, even if it was an energy dragon. Trying to take a share of its energy was simply a pipe dream. Shiwu Piaoyan said, the dark crystal I will give you to devour is 3 times more than the dark profound flame you will split out. You will benefit. The dark green dragon roared a few times and then nodded. Then, full of anger, it spat out a dark flame. This was the dark profound flame, a part of the dark green dragon's body. Not enough, not enough. Shiwu Piaoyan said. The dark green dragon continued to spit. Not enough, not enough. Shiwu Piaoyan said, at least, it is more than 100 times more powerful than the previous pure dark profound flame. Roar. The dark green dragon roared wildly and continued to spit out flames with great heartache. In the end, it spat out an energy level that was 100 times more powerful than Yang Dingtian's pure dark profound flame. Then, it was unwillingly placed in Yang Dingtian's sea of qi. It's your turn. The dark green dragon opened its mouth to Shiwu Piaoyan. Although it didn't say anything, it meant this. Shiwu Piaoyan nodded and immediately continued to release the dark crystal. Wow! Suddenly, the dark green dragon seemed to have ascended to the sky, crazily devouring the dark energy, and then dancing wildly in the depths of Yang Dingtian's sea of qi. It was a wonderful feeling. Yang Dingtian, on the other hand, couldn't bear it anymore and completely fainted. When Yang Dingtian woke up in the illusion of the scripture pavilion, the devouring of the dark crystal was over. The dark green dragon had already dove into the depths of his sea of qi contentedly, burping and snorting. Well, now you have another dark profound flame that you can summon at any time. Shiwu Piaoyan said, give it a try. Yang Dingtian felt his sea of qi and found that there was indeed another profound flame. It was a pure dark profound flame, not a dark green profound flame. Moreover, the energy level of this dark profound flame was so powerful. It was more than 100 times more powerful than the previous pure dark profound flame. Yang Dingtian immediately summoned it. A dark profound flame that completely devoured the light was burning in the air, shining with an incomparably strange and mysterious darkness. Well, child, get ready. Shiwu Piaoyan said, I want to input the operating logic of the dark profound flame spatial isolation into your brain, your profound veins, and your sea of qi. Yes. Yang Dingtian said. Suddenly, Shiwu Piaoyan turned into a stream of light and poured countless codes into Yang Dingtian's brain. Chapter 864. In fact, regarding the greater space technique, Shiwu Piaoyan originally wanted Yang Dingtian to comprehend it himself. For example, how to use the dark mystic flame to create an isolated space. This was the simplest part of the greater space technique. However, if he used the scroll code, it would take more than a few million. It was still an extremely complicated process. Even if Shiwu Piaoyan knew it, it would take a long time for Yang Dingtian to fully comprehend it. What Yang Dingtian lacked the most now was time. Therefore, Shiwu Piaoyan could only directly transform it with energy and input the code directly. It was like directly installing software on a computer and running it directly. In an instant, countless complex and mysterious energy methods transformed Yang Dingtian's mystic meridians, engraved his brain, and transformed his energy operation method. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's entire body was undergoing a baptism. He had no consciousness. He only felt countless lights and energy shuttling and circulating in his body. The whole process was relatively slow. At least, it was much slower than installing software on a computer. After an unknown amount of time, Shiwu Piaoyan injected the energy operation method and logic of the first move, space isolation, into Yang Dingtian's body. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian didn't need to understand at all. These countless energy logic and codes were deeply engraved in Yang Dingtian's mind and stayed there forever. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Well, the first move, space isolation, has entered your body. Like I said, this is already beyond the scope of martial arts. Even if these things enter your mind, can you successfully use them? Can you use them well? It all depended on one's talent and intelligence. More importantly, intelligence. Try it." Yang Dingtian understood. It was like installing some software on a computer, such as Photoshop, but you might not be able to use it well. Or, if you installed League of Legends on your computer, you might not be able to play well. Of course, this greater space technique was much more profound and mysterious. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and began to try the first move of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, space isolation. He began to control the mystic flame. The dark mystic flame grew bigger, bigger, bigger. It became a flame that was about 1 cubic meter in size. He used a special energy method to gradually change the way the darkness profound flame operated. This was a very complicated and mysterious process. Under Yang Dingtian's control, the darkness celestial flame gradually turned into a whirlpool shape and started to spin and spin. There couldn't be the slightest mistake in this process, or else it would fail. Then, the flames began to hollow out. Instantly, the entire darkness mystic flame seemed to have turned into the shape of a water droplet. There was a complicated and mysterious vortex in the middle, and a space of 1 cubic meter appeared in the vortex. Then, the whirlpool of the dark celestial flame spun continuously and produced a huge suction force that was enough to devour everything, including space. After reaching the limit, swoosh! Everything in this space was instantly devoured by the darkness profound flame. After that, Yang Dingtian extinguished the darkness mystic flame and this space completely disappeared. It disappeared from this world and was completely stolen away. Of course, Yang Dingtian knew where this space was. He took out something and threw it into the air. Then, the item disappeared into thin air. Of course, it didn't really disappear, but entered another isolated space. Then, Yang Dingtian had learned the first move of the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, isolated space. He learned it in 1 try, and succeeded in 1 try. Shiwu Piaoyan, who was on the side, was completely stunned and muttered to himself, "Even I, the so-called number 1 expert of the ancient civilization, can't help but be jealous." Then, Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Then, let's start learning the second move, space leap." Shiwu Piaoyan was about to speak, but suddenly stopped and said, "Well, child, you're still the first to speak. What do you think the so-called space leap is?" "Creating a space door, a space crack, from one space to another," Yang Dingtian said. "Oh my God." Shiwu Piaoyan said, a warrior of the chaotic world needs to understand this theory for at least a few decades, or even a lifetime. Because he must first completely overturn everything in his mind, completely empty his mind, and then put this theory in. You will know it in an instant. So, what method do you think can be used to create a space door? The resonance of two powerful energies distort the space force field and create a space crack, Yang Dingtian said. Shiwu Piaoyan seemed to be struck by lightning and couldn't speak for a long time. Although I don't know the terms, resonance, and position you said. But, I know what you said is right. Shiwu Piaoyan muttered to himself, I studied these theories for 50 years before I completely understood them. Did it take half a quarter of an hour? Yang Dingtian said embarrassedly, Senior, in fact, these theories have been described in more detail in our world. It's just that they have never been realized. Heaven's will, heaven's will. Shiwu Piaoyan said, then you should now understand the use of the fourth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Understood. Yang Dingtian said, the fourth stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, the great yin-yang scripture, is for the fifth stage. Transform my xian veins, let me master the two energies of yin and yang, and then create resonance in the isolated space. What are you going to do? Shiwu Piaoyan asked. I have two heaven and earth xian fires in my body, one is a yang 100 million spirit demonic fire, and the other is a yin ice spirit heavenly fire. Yang Dingtian said, I intend to let the two xian fires collide in the isolated space with different frequencies and energy levels. Until I find a successful frequency and create a space door. Shiwu Piaoyan was completely silent again. After a long time, he asked again, is this also the theory of your world? Yes. Yang Dingtian said, in fact, the countries in our world have undergone many similar experiments. For example, the Hadron impact. Shiwu Piaoyan said, then you can start. By the way, do you know why you have to learn in the illusion? To save time and energy. Yang Dingtian said, because in the illusion of the mind, time can almost stop, which is several times, dozens of times, or even hundreds of times slower than in the real environment. This kind of energy collision requires countless experiments to find the right frequency and the right energy level to successfully create a space door. If it were in the real world, it would take a lot of time and a lot of energy. Shiwu Piaoyan licked his lips and said, maybe you can be my teacher. Then, you can start by yourself. Then, in the illusion of the hidden scriptures pavilion, Yang Dingtian began the experiment. First, he used the dark xian fire to create a completely isolated space. Then, he introduced the yin and yang xian fires into this space and began to collide violently. It was not the chaotic xian fire, but the yin and yang xian fire. Boom! A white light that was countless times brighter than the sun burst out with extremely terrifying energy. It was almost like a nuclear bomb explosion. It was not lightning, but a direct xian fire. Yes, the collision of the two xian fires was so amazing. Fortunately, in the isolated space, the energy could not overflow. Otherwise, the consequences would be that everything within hundreds of meters or thousands of meters would be turned into ashes and smashed into pieces. The first experiment failed. Of course, failure was normal. This could be said to be the most complicated experiment, and even the slightest mistake could not be made. Yang Dingtian was completely mentally prepared. He adjusted the energy ratio between the two sides and adjusted the energy speed during the collision. The second experiment was carried out. It still failed. The third time was still a failure. The fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time, countless times. Failure, 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 failure. Yang Dingtian did not know how many failures he had experienced. Shiwu Piaoyan laughed and said, Child, it seems that this won't work. You need to enter a deeper level of meditation illusion. Otherwise, a few years won't be enough for you. Then, Shiwu Piaoyan took Yang Dingtian into a deeper level of meditation illusion. Here, time was many, many times slower than in reality. A dozen times, dozens of times, hundreds of times, young Dingtian completely understood why he had to conduct the experiment in the illusion. Because in reality, it was impossible to succeed even in 10 lifetimes. In terms of time, 100 years was not enough. In terms of energy, with Yang Dingtian's cultivation, he could only support 1,000 experiments in a year. In the illusion, Yang Dingtian might have failed more than hundreds of thousands of times. If he did 1,000,000 experiments in a real environment, it would take 1,000 years. One day, Yang Dingtian asked Shiwu Piaoyan which level of illusion he was in. How many times was the time in the illusion compared to the real time? Then, Shiwu Piaoyan told Yang Dingtian the answer. Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. He told Yang Dingtian that he had brought Yang Dingtian into the 9th level of the illusion of consciousness. As for the time multiplier, 2 hours in reality should be equivalent to about 1.5 months in the illusion. And there was another huge advantage. That was, in the illusion, when the mysterious fire collided, it did not need energy, so there was no need to recover energy at all. He could continue the experiment without interruption. Therefore, in theory, Yang Dingtian could conduct tens of millions of experiments in the illusion of consciousness. Of course, the premise was that Yang Dingtian did not collapse. Indeed, the most difficult thing was that Yang Dingtian did not collapse. When hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even more almost identical experiments were carried out, anyone would collapse, including Yang Dingtian. Therefore, Shiwu Piaoyan temporarily transformed Yang Dingtian's consciousness, making his nerves and consciousness numb. Once a person fell into numbness, it was not easy to collapse. Of course, it could also be said that numbness itself was collapse. However, this kind of numbness was similar to robots and computers. No matter how many times the same actions were repeated, they would not get tired, irritated, or crazy. In this way, again and again, again and again. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian succeeded once. Yang Dingtian succeeded. After the collision of the mysterious fire of Yin Yang, a beautiful door of light and shadow appeared in the isolated space. Thank you, brothers. Chapter 865. Yang Dingtian, who was numb, suddenly woke up after a long time. Then he fell into infinite surprise and ecstasy. I did it. I did it. I can leave this damn place. Yang Dingtian shouted crazily. Shiwu Piaoyan was still smiling, watching Yang Dingtian go crazy. After a long time, Yang Dingtian suddenly asked, Teacher, is the 5th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship over? Is there a third move? No, Shiwu Piaoyan said. Yang Dingtian was suddenly surprised, and then he said timidly, but I haven't broken through to the half-saint level. And teacher, it seems that the 5th stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship is useless to me, although it is extremely mysterious. Yang Dingtian's words were really heartless. It was like a child complaining that the gift given by his parents was not good enough. However, Yang Dingtian did not lie. The first stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship was very powerful, making Yang Dingtian almost invincible in swordsmanship. The second stage was not very noticeable. The third stage, Yin and Yang Qi transformation technique, made Yang Dingtian's cultivation efficiency double with half the effort, and could dissolve any kind of qi. The fourth stage, Yin and Yang heaven and earth skill, was the most useful to Yang Dingtian. In particular, the existence of the chaotic attribute, as well as the mysterious fire lightning, almost became the foundation of Yang Dingtian's life. The fifth stage, the great space skill, was the most mysterious, and also the most coveted skill in New Naga. Of course, if Yang Dingtian wanted to leave the confinement space of New Naga, he had to learn the great space skill. However, it did not seem to improve his fighting strength that much. The reason why Yang Dingtian came was that he felt that the fifth stage of the pig-killing swordsmanship could help him break through to the half-saint level. Ha ha ha. Shuwu Piaoyan laughed and said, "Silly boy, first of all, I deliberately poured a lot of energy into the first few stages of the pig-slaying swordsmanship to bring about a breakthrough in your cultivation. Therefore, when the energy from the scroll enters your body, it will bring about a huge breakthrough in your qi. Secondly, the first 4 stages were still considered pure martial arts scrolls, but the 5th stage greater space art was already completely beyond the scope of martial arts. Of course, when the energy of the scroll entered your body, engraved memories in your brain, changed the way your profound veins operated, and entered the code. Complicated adjustments have been made to the way your darkness mystic flame operates and the way your yin-yang mystic flame operates. A certain amount of energy has also entered your body. But if you want to rely on this energy to break through, it's impossible." Yang Dingtian smiled embarrassedly. "Teacher, with this 5th rank, I will be able to leave this place. Furthermore, it is already worth it to be able to meet you again. As for breaking through to the half-saint realm, I can go to other places." "Silly boy," Shuwu Piaoyan said with a smile. "You still think that the greater space technique is useless to you. Can you imagine what it can bring you?" Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, "You can let me leave New Naga. And during the battle, in case of extreme danger, I can open the space door and leave directly." Shuwu Piaoyan shook his head and said, "Without the greater space technique, where did you get this ring?" Yang Dingtian was suddenly stunned and said, My space ring, was it made by the greater space technique?" Shuwu Piaoyan nodded and said, "The ring on your hand should be the experimental product of the greater space technique that I, an ancient Naga, studied. We made several rings in total, but I didn't expect that one of them would be in your hand." Yang Dingtian was shocked. It turned out that this was how the greater space ring came about. This ring was given to him by Shiman Ningning. Why did Shiman Ningning have the greater space ring made by ancient Naga? Suddenly, Shiman Ningning's identity became even more confusing in Yang Dingtian's eyes. He originally thought that Shiman Ningning would be the most senior spy of the Temple of Annihilation, but it seemed that she was not. The people of the Temple of Annihilation did not have the right to possess the greater space ring of ancient Naga. However, Shuwu Piaoyan's expression became dignified and he said, "Child, do you know? At that time, we only made 9 greater space rings, which should have been in the confinement space of New Naga. It was impossible for them to leak out. But now, they have leaked out. Do you know what this means?" Yang Dingtian's heart skipped a beat and he said, "It means that there are deserters in ancient Naga, and at least one of them did not disappear and create this isolated space." Shuwu Piaoyan nodded and said, "Otherwise, the greater space ring would not have leaked out." Yang Dingtian said, "Master, this greater space ring was given to me by a lover of mine. Her name is Shiman Ningning, and she once brought me the deep-sea black poison. After she was poisoned, she suddenly became very powerful and slaughtered thousands of people in an instant." Shuwu Piaoyan gasped and said, "There is really a Naga who did not abide by the ancient agreement and escaped without permission. Your lover, Shiman Ningning, may be a descendant of Naga." Yang Dingtian said, but her cultivation is very weak, almost no cultivation at all. She is a very, very, very talented spiritual master." At this point, Yang Dingtian immediately understood. In order to make up for her heinous crimes, ancient Naga sacrificed herself and created the confinement space of New Naga. And she let her descendants take another path, a spiritual breakthrough. Therefore, in the later generations of Naga, there were a group of wise people who had extremely high spiritual talent but very low martial talent. Shiman Ningning was such a wise person with a spiritual talent. She was from the later generations of Naga, so she did not have the deep-sea black poison. However, her parents had it, so she did not know how far she had gone to find her parents for the deep-sea black poison. After she was poisoned, not only was she fine, but she also became very powerful. It was like after Queen Lan Qi was poisoned by the deep-sea black poison, she became much stronger and defeated Bui Cao. Everything was echoing. Shiman Ningning's identity was solved. She was the descendant of the defectors of ancient Naga. She was from the later generations of Naga. Yang Dingtian suddenly gasped. He did not expect that when he was very, very weak, there would be a later generations of Naga by his side, and she was his lover. Then, where did Shiman Ningning go now? Moreover, this also meant that Shuang was no longer the only demigod Naga in the chaotic world. As a later generations of Naga, how could Shiman Ningning be in such a small force like Cloud Sky City? How could she become Shiman Wuya's adopted daughter? This was a complete mystery. Also, were Shiman Ningning's Naga parents enemies or friends? Child, you can't figure out these things now. Anyway, one day, you will meet her, Shiwu Piaoyan said. Yang Dingtian immediately nodded. Subsequently, he recalled something and asked, "That's right. Teacher, is this spatial ring also an isolated space?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Yes, you finally remembered. However, it is very difficult for an isolated space to exist directly in an ordinary environment. It will be turned into ashes in an instant." Yang Dingtian said, "But when I just removed the mystic fire, the isolated space was still there." After that, Yang Dingtian patted his head and said, "I'm confused. This is an illusion. Yes, in a real environment, it will disappear in an instant. It must be under the protection of the dark mystic fire vortex," Shiwu Piaoyan said. "However, there is something that can directly lock the isolated space." "What is it?" Yang Dingtian asked. "Void stone and dark crystal." Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Through the carving of energy, you can create a permanent dark vortex in the void stone. In this way, the isolated space can exist in the void stone. Then you can carve anything with the void stone, such as a ring." Yang Dingtian said, "Does the void stone mean that it usually doesn't exist and only shows its original form when energy is injected?" "Yes," Shiwu Piaoyan said. Yang Dingtian said, "Does that mean that I can also make a space ring as long as I have the void stone?" "Yes." Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Of course, child. It is a very complicated and difficult process to carve a black vortex with energy. It is also a very powerful cultivation process. Once you succeed, you will gain a lot." Yang Dingtian suddenly became excited. A space ring was the most awesome thing in the chaotic world. If he could make one and give one to each of his confidants, how convenient it would be to transport things. "Teacher, where can I find the void stone?" Yang Dingtian asked. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "It is everywhere, but under normal circumstances, it is impossible to find it." "Then how can I find it?" Yang Dingtian asked. "When you get close to a place and find an energy vortex, all the energy is involuntarily swept in. There is a void stone there," Shiwu Piaoyan said. "Then, you can find it and inject energy, and it will show its form." Yang Dingtian asked, "Then where does it like to appear?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "It is at the bottom of the sea in New Naga. The closer you are to the end of the world, the greater the possibility of finding it." Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be eager to try. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Next, what is the use of the greater space technique?" "Think about it." Yang Dingtian said, "Can I go wherever I want in the future? Just open a space door and jump in." Shiwu Piaoyan was shocked and said, "Child, even I am shocked by your words. In theory, yes, but in practice, it is impossible because it requires almost infinite energy." Yang Dingtian said, "Then if I can fold space, I can go wherever I want." Shiwu Piaoyan was stunned. He was indeed deeply shocked by Yang Dingtian's theory. He muttered to himself, "Yes, folding space, folding space. Why didn't we think of it at that time? Child, if only we had met you earlier." Yang Dingtian asked, "Teacher, how far can I jump with this space door?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "With your cultivation, it should be infinitely close." "Ah." Yang Dingtian was a little disappointed. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Although it is infinitely far, you can freely travel between planes. And this distance is not significant for the space door. You can only open the space door when you are in danger and let all your companions escape quickly. Or, you can directly sneak into a certain place. Yang Dingtian thought of this scene. He led his powerful confidence directly to open the space door and instantly enter the enemy's rear. Just thinking about it made him excited. Or even more exaggerated, he could directly build a missile and then set up a space door. The missile could pass through the space door and hit the Vulture Palace in an instant. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian hurriedly asked, "Is this possible?" "Of course it is." Shiwu Piaoyan said, "This is a directional space door. The stronger your cultivation is, the more energy you inject into it, and the greater the space door can cross. So, the idea in your mind is completely possible." Yang Dingtian was very excited. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Well, silly child, you worked so hard to find the 5th level of the pig-slaying swordsmanship just to break through to the half-saint realm, right?" Yang Dingtian nodded quickly. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Although the 5th level of the pig-slaying swordsmanship can't help you achieve your goal. But it is not difficult for you to break through to the half-saint realm now." Yang Dingtian was pleasantly surprised. "Can I do it now?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Your cultivation, according to what you said, should be the 3rd grade of the 14th level." Yang Dingtian nodded. Originally, Yang Dingtian had broken through to the 5th grade of the 14th level, but when he was passing through and swallowing the thick fog, a lot of energy was swallowed and fell to the 3rd grade of the 14th level. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Don't you still have 3 16th level energy bodies and 1 18th level energy body?" Yes, Yang Dingtian had a 16th level energy essence, 2 16th level hell magic crystals, and 1 18th level hell magic crystal. Yang Dingtian said, "Unfortunately, I can't swallow 16th level energy essences with my current cultivation. And I can't transform the hell magic crystals into energy essences that can be swallowed and remove the death energy inside." Shiwu Piaoyan suddenly laughed and said, "Silly child, you can't swallow 16th level energy essences and remove the death energy in front of me." "Ah." Yang Dingtian was stunned and said, You can." Shiwu Piaoyan said, "I can negotiate with the abyssal dragon." "Do you think I can?" Yang Dingtian was surprised and said, "Okay, then take out the energy essences and hell magic crystals. Help me." Before he could finish speaking, the 4 energy bodies floated directly from reality into the illusory realm. Among them, the huge one, pale golden and almost colorless, was the 18th level hell magic crystal. Shiwu Piaoyan easily stripped the death energy of the hell magic crystal and turned it into pure energy essence. Then, he easily condensed 3 16th level energy essences. Originally, it was not enough to become a 17th level ultimate energy essence, but Shiwu Piaoyan compressed it and made it a mid-16th level ultimate energy essence. Yang Dingtian immediately gasped in amazement. Then, Shiwu Piaoyan handed the mid-16th level ultimate energy essence to Yang Dingtian. "Swallow it and see how much you can break through." Yang Dingtian took it, put it in the palm of his hand, closed his eyes, and swallowed it. Chapter 866. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian thought that this was an illusion. Could it be that he could devour the energy essence? Suddenly, he couldn't help but voice his doubts. Shiwu Piaoyan smiled and said, "Child, you are separating illusion and reality too far apart. Some things can cross between reality and illusion, such as energy bodies. You just need to devour them." "Oh, okay," Yang Dingtian said. Then, he closed his eyes and began to devour the 16th level ultimate energy essence. Suddenly, an incomparably powerful energy poured in an instant. It was stronger than any energy essence that Yang Dingtian had devoured in the past. According to common practice, with such a strong and dense energy pouring into the Xian meridians and sea of qi, blood would be spurted out in almost the next second. Then, the Xian meridians would crack, and the whole body would explode. However, just as Yang Dingtian felt that his eyes were white, he was about to faint, and his whole body was about to explode in an instant. Suddenly, a powerful energy shrouded him, suppressing this tearing tendency. Then, the energy essence surged in an instant. In just a moment, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi began to expand, and then in an instant, it exploded. Boom! His whole body completely sank into nothingness. Then, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi began to break through and rushed to the 14th level 4th rank again. After only a quarter of an hour, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi was filled again and began to expand. Boom! The world in the depths of the sea of qi exploded again. Yang Dingtian broke through again and returned to the previous highest level, the 5th level 14th level. Nearly a quarter of an hour later, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi exploded again and broke through the 6th level 14th level. Another quarter of an hour later, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi expanded again, but this time it was not so strong and seemed to be a little weak. However, Yang Dingtian's luck was very good. Boom! The world in the sea of qi exploded again, and Yang Dingtian's cultivation broke through again, reaching the 7th level 14th level. Finally, the energy of the 16th level medium limit was completely consumed, allowing Yang Dingtian to break through to the 4th level. After opening his eyes, Yang Dingtian finally could not help but ask, "Teacher, you're just a spiritual body. How can you be so powerful?" Shiwu Piaoyan reached out and touched Yang Dingtian's head. He said, "Child, I am just a spiritual body. How could I have such powerful energy? It's because I'm inside the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion's cube. I can borrow the energy inside. This is an incomparably huge energy field." Yang Dingtian nodded. He finally understood. Then, he asked Shiwu Piaoyan, "Do you want to use this level 18 energy essence as well?" "Of course," said Shiwu Piaoyan. Yang Dingtian said, "But there's only one of him. He can't become an ultimate energy essence, can he?" Shiwu Piaoyan laughed. "Who told you that an energy essence cannot become an ultimate energy essence? The so-called ultimate energy essence is not an increase in energy level, but an increase in energy density and the amount of energy that can be produced per unit of time, right?" Yang Dingtian nodded. Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Usually, you need several energy essences to fuse. That's because your cultivation is not high enough and you can't forcibly compress its energy density. But I can do it easily." After saying that, Shiwu Piaoyan easily used the energy field of the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion to compress this level 18 intermediate energy essence into a very dense ultimate energy essence. Yang Dingtian asked, "After being compressed, what level of ultimate energy essence is it equivalent to?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "It's still a level 18 intermediate energy essence. If you want to equate it, then it's probably stronger than the level 18 ultimate energy essence you swallowed before." Yang Dingtian took a deep breath. This was an energy essence that was 3 or 4 levels higher than his own. If it weren't for Shiwu Piaoyan, swallowing such an energy essence would definitely be a dead end. There was a 1000% chance that he would turn into ashes. He put this level 18 energy essence in his hand, and then a warm energy shrouded him directly. It almost protected every inch of Yang Dingtian's body, except for his sea of qi. For Yang Dingtian, this 18th rank energy essence was too shocking. So much so that Shiwu Piaoyan had to treat it seriously and protect Yang Dingtian to the extreme. "Okay, child, you can start now," Shiwu Piaoyan said. After Yang Dingtian took a deep breath, he began to swallow. Then, he only felt a flash of golden light, and he instantly lost all his consciousness. The integration of this energy was completely destructive, and crazy. Although Yang Dingtian's body was protected to the extreme, his entire consciousness was instantly short-circuited. Of course, Yang Dingtian soon woke up. Then he found that his whole body didn't seem to be his at all. He couldn't feel anything. Soon, his sea of qi began to expand. Oh, no, it didn't even expand before it exploded. The level 18 energy essence made Yang Dingtian break through to the level 8 of the 14th level. Then, it also made Yang Dingtian break through to the level 9 of the 18th level. Next was the most important process of breaking through to the level 15 half-saint. Yang Dingtian's heart couldn't help but beat wildly. The 15th level was almost one of the most difficult hurdles. Under normal circumstances, if one's luck was very good, it would take 5 level 16 energy essences to go from the level 9 of the 14th level to the 15th level. Then, was the compressed level 18 energy essence in Yang Dingtian's hand enough at this time? He didn't have any confidence at all. He even had an 80% chance of failure. However, reality almost didn't give him a chance to be nervous. There was no suspense. Unparalleled powerful energy poured into his sea of qi. Soon, it began to expand, 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 expand. Yes, it kept expanding. If it didn't explode, it couldn't break through. Then, Yang Dingtian felt a sense of suffocation. He felt that his sea of qi began to overturn. It began to feel as if it was going to be completely destroyed. Yang Dingtian entered the most dangerous situation. Because this kind of energy was too eager for quick success, the sea of qi finally solidified and became stagnant. In other words, the qi energy was already enough for a breakthrough. But the sea of qi didn't change. It couldn't produce a qualitative change. However, the qi energy was still pouring in. There was only one result in this afternoon. That was, the sea of qi would really explode. It would completely explode. Yang Dingtian's whole body would be completely destroyed. At this time, Shiwu Piaoyan couldn't care about anything else. A powerful spiritual energy poured in and blocked the entrance of Yang Dingtian's sea of qi, preventing the energy from continuing to enter. At the same time, the black-green giant dragon, who felt the danger of destruction, finally stopped trembling after the devouring. Suddenly, countless tentacles stretched out from the abyss of the sea of qi. The tentacles swept up the qi energy that had been filled to the extreme. They spun quickly and then scattered. Boom! The energy in Yang Dingtian's sea of qi finally exploded. Then, his whole body in divine sense fell into nothingness. He had broken through to the 15th level. He had broken through to the half-saint level. Although it was a little thrilling, he had broken through to the half-saint level. However, it seemed that because it was too smooth, there was no sacred and grand feeling. Yes, because of the existence of Shiwu Piaoyan's spiritual body in the energy field of the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion, it was so easy to break through to the half-saint level. Compared to breaking through to Martial Venerable, Supreme Master, and Great Grandmaster, Yang Dingtian's breakthrough to the half-saint level was the easiest. Wu Yuming, after countless years, relied on evil spirits to break through to the half-saint level. Wu Daozi also broke through to the half-saint level many years after entering the infinite Great Grandmaster level, relying on evil spirits. Yang Dingtian, from entering the infinite Great Grandmaster level to breaking through to the half-saint level, took about 2 years. It was really incredible to the extreme. From then on, Yang Dingtian really realized how cool it was to have a strong backer. In order to break through to the half-saint level, others had almost put in a lifetime of effort. But in front of Shiwu Piaoyan, it was so easy to break through. Without Shiwu Piaoyan, Yang Dingtian really didn't know how long it would take for him to break through. Because in the second dark realm, it was almost impossible to hunt elemental creatures. Relying on normal cultivation, even with Yang Dingtian's talent, it might take countless years. Moreover, the human countries didn't have enough energy density. However, after breaking through to the half-saint level, Yang Dingtian's breakthrough still didn't stop. Soon, his sea of qi began to expand again. Boom! Another breakthrough, reaching the first rank of the 15th level. However, the breakthrough didn't stop. After a full quarter of an hour, Yang Dingtian's energy reserve expanded again. Boom! Yang Dingtian broke through again, reaching the second rank of the 15th level. Yang Dingtian was really going crazy. However, the breakthrough wasn't over yet. After nearly half an hour, Yang Dingtian's energy reserve began to expand again. This kind of surprise almost made Yang Dingtian's nerves numb. It was like a person who bought a lottery ticket and only wanted to win 100,000, but in the end, he won 30 million. Boom! Yang Dingtian's energy reserve broke through again. He actually broke through to the 3rd rank of the 15th level. Finally, the crazy breakthrough stopped. This 18th level high-density ultimate energy essence was completely exhausted. It actually allowed Yang Dingtian to break through a big level and 5 ranks. It was really too heaven-defying. Of course, at this time, Yang Dingtian's energy reserve had only reached the 3rd rank of the 15th level. His real cultivation was still at the 9th rank of the 14th level. Because his energy reserve and the entire Xian meridians needed to be sublimated. Otherwise, even if he had the cultivation of a half-saint, he couldn't use it. Yang Dingtian asked, "Teacher, can my mystic fire lightning help me sublimate my energy reserve and Xian meridians and reach the true cultivation of a half-saint?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Of course. At this time, the power of your mystic fire lightning has completely surpassed the 19th level." Yang Dingtian said, "But I can't control this energy level well. If it's too high, I will be directly struck into ashes." Shiwu Piaoyan suddenly laughed and said, "Are you kidding? What do I do? What does the giant dragon in your energy reserve do? You can directly strike it with the highest level of mystic fire lightning." Immediately, Yang Dingtian felt that having such a huge backer was truly a very, 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 very good thing. Whoosh! He released the million spirit demonic fire with the chaotic attribute. Whoosh! Then, he released the demon spirit demonic fire with the chaotic attribute. Finally, he summoned the void-splitting fire with the chaotic attribute. 3 mystic fires suddenly flew to the top of his head. At the same time, Shiwu Piaoyan suddenly released an energy shield to ensure that the mystic fire lightning was completely shielded within the energy shield. Bang! The 3 mystic fires fiercely collided. Boom! Once again, the light was like a nuclear bomb explosion. Unparalleled powerful energy suddenly poured into Yang Dingtian's body. This energy was actually not enough. Yes, such a heaven-defying mystic fire lightning was actually not enough for Yang Dingtian's energy reserve to sublimate. This was a saint-level energy of nearly 20 levels. However, Shiwu Piaoyan obviously thought of this. Almost at the same time, an incomparably powerful lightning suddenly struck Yang Dingtian and poured into his body. The energy was enough. All the energy suddenly drilled into Yang Dingtian's energy reserve. There was no trace on the surface of his body. The 3 mystic fire lightning and the lightning energy created by Shiwu Piaoyan's spiritual body all poured into Yang Dingtian's energy reserve and instantly condensed into an extremely small point. Then, it suddenly exploded. Boom! Yang Dingtian's energy reserve seemed to have experienced the explosion of a nuclear bomb again. Then, this incomparably powerful energy was instantly swallowed by his energy reserve and suddenly transformed and upgraded. Yang Dingtian, in terms of cultivation, had really broken through the half-saint level and reached the 3rd grade of the 15th level. He had become one of the few half-saints in the world. Chapter 867. For a long time, Yang Dingtian was still immersed in the joy of breaking through to the semi-saint realm. Then he asked, "Teacher, you said that you would go to the world of death to find the ultimate way to save the world and put an end to the great nirvana extinction, right?" Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Yes, but I really can't guarantee success. I even think the probability of success will be very low." Yang Dingtian said, "I also saw that the world of death has been devouring the world of life. The border of the abyss is spreading every day. This trend seems to be very, very difficult to stop." Shiwu Piaoyan said, "Child, so I can't guarantee that there will be a 6th level of the pig-killing swordsmanship. If there is a 6th level, then I should have found the way to save the world. If not, then. Yang Dingtian asked, do you have any ideas now? For example, what will the 6th level of the pig-killing swordsmanship be about? Shuwu Piaoyan shook his head and said, I still don't know. At that time, I was with the Naga for many years, but I couldn't find a way to save the world. So the ancient Naga could only sacrifice the whole clan and create this isolated space with the space technique. Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment and said, Teacher, I should go out. Do you have any other orders? Shuwu Piaoyan thought for a while and shook his head. Originally, I wanted to tell you not to let the real Naga in your space ring completely transform. But now, I don't know what to do because there are obviously other real demigods in the world, at least one Naga. If it is an enemy, then you have to rely on your Naga wife to defeat her. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I know. I will find the most gentle way to let her transform. Do you have any instructions for the giant dragon in my Sea of Qi? Shuwu Piaoyan shook his head and said, everything is up to fate. Yang Dingtian looked at Shuwu Piaoyan and his slightly aged face. He really didn't know when they would meet again. He didn't even know if they would ever meet again. Yang Dingtian suddenly felt a little sour. Okay, you can leave now. Shuwu Piaoyan waved his hand. Yes, teacher. Yang Dingtian then bowed deeply to him. Then, the Shuwu Piaoyan disappeared completely, and Yang Dingtian exited the deepest level of the illusion. As if countless reflections were shuttling back and forth, Yang Dingtian first returned to the great illusion realm of the scripture depository. Then, the scene changed again. Yang Dingtian left the sutra depository and returned to reality. Then, Yang Dingtian saw that he was floating on the sea with Queen Lan Qi beside him. Yang Dingtian was stunned. More than half a month. Is that a long time? Queen Lan Qi shook her head and said, not very long, only more than 5 days. Yang Dingtian bowed and said, thank you, Lan Qi. Oh, by the way, I'll return the sutra depository cube to you. When he was about to return it, he found that his hands were empty. Queen Lan Qi said, when you came out, the sutra depository cube had already returned to my body. Yang Dingtian asked, by the way, did you see a huge lightning bolt strike my head? Lan Qi said, I felt it, but I couldn't see it. There was a space that wrapped your body directly. I couldn't find anything inside. Yang Dingtian entered the soul ring to check and found that the hell magic crystals had long disappeared without a trace. He checked his cultivation again and found that it was indeed much stronger. It was a complete qualitative leap and sublimation. Just as Shuwu Piaoyan said, sometimes the boundary between illusion and reality was not so clear, and energy could directly shuttle between them. Then, Yang Dingtian began to try the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, the Great Space Technique. First, he released the dark profound flame, and then used an incomparably mysterious method to make the dark profound flame spin into a profound flame. The entire process was extremely complicated, but because Yang Dingtian had learned the pig-slaying sword art scroll, the procedures were already engraved in his brain and mystic meridians. Hence, there was no need for Yang Dingtian to understand it and was able to operate it immediately. Suddenly, a complete dark profound flame vortex was created, and a black hole space created by the dark profound flame was created. Then, this black hole gradually swallowed everything in this space. As a result, this space was completely stolen and isolated. Then, Yang Dingtian used the modified yin-yang profound flame to collide in the space. He used an extremely special energy level and energy frequency to collide. Boom! In the isolated space, an extremely bright light burst out. Then, a beautiful space door appeared in the isolated space. It was indeed mysterious and magical to the extreme. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian thought that when creating the space door, Shuwu Piaoyan could also directly tell Yang Dingtian the energy level, energy attribute, and energy frequency of the profound flame's collision. There was no need for countless experiments. Just like other secret manuals, it could be directly engraved in the profound meridians and consciousness. However, in order to let Yang Dingtian have a deeper understanding, Shiwu Piaoyan let him carry out countless experiments, and he reaped the joy of this success. Yang Dingtian dispersed the dark profound flame vortex. Suddenly, this beautiful little space door directly appeared in the air. When Queen Lan Qi saw this, she immediately suffocated. Her beautiful face flushed red, revealing a look of disbelief. In the air, the space door only existed for a moment, and then it immediately disappeared. Queen Lan Qi reacted after a long time and said, Yang Dingtian, this is the space technique. Through this door, you can leave the confinement space of New Naga. Yang Dingtian nodded. Queen Lan Qi immediately covered her heart, suppressing the strong impulse in her heart. This was something that all Naga people dreamed of. Bu Yikao started a rebellion of millions of Naga people and finally died for this space door. Now, this space door appeared in front of her, and it was created by a human. How could Queen Lan Qi not be excited and shocked? After a long time, Queen Lan Qi calmed her breathing and said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, you shouldn't have released this space door, because it is also very tempting to me. As soon as these words came out, Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly jumped, and an incomparably tempting thought surged in his mind. This Queen Lan Qi was so powerful. If she followed him back to the human countries and fought side by side with him, wouldn't that be a good thing? However, he quickly gave up this tempting idea. Because it was impossible. First of all, Queen Lan Qi had to guard New Naga. This was her mission. Secondly, Yang Dingtian's space door's energy was limited. It couldn't pass through a powerful Naga like Queen Lan Qi. It could only pass through energy bodies with the same cultivation level as him or lower. Okay, let's go back, Queen Lan Qi said. Accompany me for a few more days, then return to the human countries. Yang Dingtian looked at the bottom of the sea and said, Lan Qi, the sea at the end of the world is below, right? Yes, Queen Lan Qi said. Yang Dingtian said, if you don't have anything urgent, let's go to the bottom of the sea and look for a kind of void stone. Queen Lan Qi said, void stone? This thing is useless. Why are you looking for it? Yang Dingtian said, to create a space ring. Queen Lan Qi said, you know how to create a space ring? Yang Dingtian said, I can only try. I don't know if I will succeed. By the way, my teacher said that there are a total of 9 space rings. Most of them are in New Naga. Do you know? Queen Lan Qi shook her head and said, I don't know. I have never seen or heard of it. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, oh, then maybe space rings are also taboo in New Naga. If you have something to do, can you go back to the capital first? Queen Lan Qi said, what can happen to me? It's not like you don't know that I'm bored to death every day. Then, Yang Dingtian and Queen Lan Qi went to the bottom of the sea to look for void stones. It was very troublesome for others to find void stones. They had to release a powerful energy field to cover the surrounding area and find an energy vortex. No matter how powerful a person was, their energy field could only cover a diameter of 12 miles at most. Moreover, the consumption of Xian Qi was extremely fast. Yang Dingtian was different. The countless wraiths he released could easily cover a diameter of more than 100 miles. Moreover, the consumption of Xian Qi was almost negligible. After going to the bottom of the sea, Yang Dingtian immediately released countless wraiths to cover a diameter of 100 miles. He didn't find anything. Yang Dingtian moved to the next area and still didn't find anything. It seemed that there weren't as many void stones as he thought. Yang Dingtian moved to the next area. Just like that, Yang Dingtian searched a radius of 1,000 miles before finding the first void stone. Queen Lan Qi seemed to be even more excited than him. She rushed over and injected energy into the entire area. Suddenly, a void stone about an inch long grew in a pile of crystals. Queen Lan Qi quickly picked it and played with it in her hands for a while before handing it to Yang Dingtian. This thing was useless to her. She just liked to play and enjoy the fun of finding things. The two of them searched for a day and a night. Yang Dingtian finally found a dozen void stones. The small ones were only half an inch long, and the big ones were only 2 to 3 inches long. With these gains, Yang Dingtian and Queen Lan Qi returned to the capital. Yang Dingtian was going to use these void stones to carve a small dark vortex with energy. Then, he would create a permanent isolated space. This way, a rare treasure, the space ring, would be born. Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't know if it would succeed. But whether it succeeded or not, Yang Dingtian would leave New Naga and return to the human countries in 3 days. Chapter 868. The feeling of passing through the space portal was far less mysterious than passing through the abyss border. It was just a flash of light before his eyes and a chill on his face. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian passed through the space portal. Suddenly, his vision darkened, and he felt the energy in his body flowing away quickly. After jumping through the space portal, Yang Dingtian left the confinement space of New Naga and returned to the third dark realm. Moreover, it was nighttime, and there was thick devouring slurry everywhere like mercury. At the same time, the moment Yang Dingtian passed through, the space portal in New Naga turned into ashes and disappeared completely. Recalling what the Demon King Wentian said, Yang Dingtian immediately released the void-splitting fire. Sure enough, the feeling of energy flowing away immediately stopped. Moreover, the devouring slurry within a few meters of the void-splitting fire was turned into ashes. Yang Dingtian's surroundings had instantly turned into a clean space. This void-rending flame was indeed powerful. When he looked back, he could not see the existence of the New Naga space at all. It was correct to not see it because it was an isolated space, so in the real world, it was infinitely small. However, Yang Dingtian knew that it was actually beside him. Of course, if Yang Dingtian opened another space portal, he would not be able to go to New Naga. Because Yang Dingtian did not know where its singularity was. The space portal could only be overlapped with it for Yang Dingtian to jump in. Otherwise, Yang Dingtian's space portal was completely infinite, and it would be very difficult to jump in accurately. Therefore, if Yang Dingtian wanted to enter New Naga, there was only one way, and that was to fall into outer space again and find the entrance to the black hole vortex in New Naga. Once he entered, he would immediately be swallowed into the confinement space of New Naga. He took one last look at the invisible singularity of New Naga in this space and then turned to leave. He had no interest in moving forward in the thick liquid. Thus, he used the mystic flame to spurt out and continuously flew upwards. After flying for 2,000 miles, they finally rushed out of the devouring slurry and arrived in the vacuum. He raised his head and saw the tranquil night sky again. Yang Dingtian identified the direction and then used the mystic flame to fly in the direction of the second dark domain. In a vacuum, the speed of Yang Dingtian's mysterious fire was already very shocking. It was several times faster than the speed of sound, and could travel several thousand miles per hour. About 10 hours later, Yang Dingtian's mystic flame spurted out and flew for tens of thousands of miles. The abyss leading to the second dark domain was already in sight. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's profound qi had yet to be exhausted. Breaking through to the half-step sage realm was indeed different. Previously, Yang Dingtian's Xian flame could only fly for more than 5,000 kilometers before his Xian qi would be exhausted. But now, it was more than 2 to 3 times. However, there was still some Xian qi left. Looking at the border of the abyss, Yang Dingtian suddenly felt a very familiar feeling. He released the void-splitting fire and quickly devoured and refined the energy of the border of the abyss. The void-splitting fire began to split and split into countless black and white flames that filled the entire border of the abyss. Then, it began to fuse into a transparent void-splitting fire. The entire border of the abyss turned into a transparent crystal. Yang Dingtian suddenly leaped in and once again enjoyed the space-time traversing and the bizarre feeling. A moment later, he suddenly passed through the border of the abyss and arrived at the third dark domain. The familiar third dark domain was completely scorching hot. The light from the two suns made it impossible to see anything. Yang Dingtian quickly put on his sunglasses and then used his near-emperor-grade soul sword to start digging a deep cave. After digging a few hundred meters, Yang Dingtian recovered his Xian Qi in the cave and began to absorb Xian Qi. Soon, he completely recovered his combat Xian Qi. Yang Dingtian was not in a hurry to return to the surface to find Yao Li and the rest. Instead, he closed his eyes to rest. That was because Yang Dingtian felt that Yao Li's team would not come out to hunt during the day. After waiting for a few hours, it should be dawn. Because the surrounding temperature was rapidly dropping, Yang Dingtian left the cave and returned to the surface. Then, he continued to head south and released the Million Spirit Demonic Fire's infinite wraiths to search for any energy fluctuations. Because, whether it was elemental creatures or fox demon experts, as long as there was any movement, the countless wraiths would be affected. Just like that, Yang Dingtian searched an area of more than 100 miles each time. Just like that, he searched the area one by one. An entire night passed, but the countless wraiths did not move at all. Yang Dingtian was instantly flabbergasted. For the entire night, Yang Dingtian had searched the entire area within a radius of over 1,000 miles, but there wasn't any movement. This also meant that he didn't discover any demon fox race experts, nor did he discover any elemental creatures. When it was almost daytime, Yang Dingtian sat down cross-legged to recover his Xian Qi. Then, under the baking of 2 days, when the entire world was red and melting, Yang Dingtian searched again. If there was no harvest during the day, perhaps there would be at night. In the end, an entire day passed and there was still no harvest. He did not find any elemental creatures, nor did he find any fox demon experts. Yang Dingtian was flabbergasted. How long had it been since he left the second dark realm? It had been almost 8 months. Could it be that one day in the new Naga's confinement space was equivalent to a month or a year outside? Otherwise, why was there not a single ghost in the second dark realm? Soon enough, Yang Dingtian threw away this ridiculous thought. It was impossible. This wasn't heaven and earth, and it wasn't interstellar transmigration or anything like that. Then why was there not a single ghost in sight? It should be the result of the Great Fission. That disaster had caused 90% of the elemental creatures in the second dark realm to be annihilated. The remaining 10% of elemental creatures had probably been hiding underground for a long time, unwilling to come out. If that was the case, the fox demon experts had no hope of hunting and could not leave. Then, there was only one result. The first possibility was internal strife. The second possibility was that they were all hiding underground, entering deep sleep and meditation, waiting for the door of darkness to open in the skull hall. However, that would take more than 190 years. If that was the case, it was normal that there was not a single ghost. In that case, Yao Li was very likely waiting in the original cave for Yang Dingtian to return. It was either the 4-room, 2-hall cave that the Moro young master Yaoleng had snatched, or the 2-room cave later. Those 2 caves should be in the center of the second dark realm. Thus, Yang Dingtian took advantage of the darkness and immediately ran toward the center of the second dark realm at full speed. Yang Dingtian ran very quickly, covering nearly 1,000 kilometers in an hour. Even so, it took him 2 days and 2 nights to reach the center of the second dark realm. After more than 40 hours, Yang Dingtian reached the center of the second dark realm, near the 4-room, 2-hall cave that he had dug. Of course, because of the Great Fission, the underground cave had been completely destroyed, but it was more or less in the same direction. When he was more than 100 kilometers away, Yang Dingtian did not dare to let his guard down. He released countless wraiths to investigate. As expected, he soon discovered an unprecedentedly strong energy fluctuation. Thus, Yang Dingtian cautiously made his way toward the source of the energy fluctuation. When Yang Dingtian arrived at that place, he was immediately stunned. There was actually a huge castle standing here. When did this happen? This was the second dark realm. The ground would be melted by the heat of day and night. A castle built on the ground would be melted by the heat of day and night and would collapse. However, Yang Dingtian soon discovered that the castle was not made of stone, but a metal that glowed with blue light. It had a very high melting point, and even 2 days would not be enough to melt it. Not only was there a castle, but there were also guards on the castle. They were all elites of the Fox clan, and they were on full alert. Yang Dingtian was instantly flabbergasted. What exactly did this mean? Could it be that because they could not hunt elemental creatures, someone decided to establish a regime here? Yang Dingtian immediately entered the castle to see if he could find Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others. He searched every corner of the castle, but did not find Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, Ah Wen, or Ah Wu. There were more than 100 Fox clan members in the castle. Soon, Yang Dingtian knew whose castle this was. It was the castle of the young master of the Moro clan, Yao Leng. This was because Yang Dingtian saw him on the throne of the castle. There was oxygen in the castle because there were pills everywhere, and the air was steaming. Have the people we sent out not found Yao Li yet? Yao Leng asked. Not yet, young master. A half-saint beside him bowed and said, however, we have a general direction. However, Yao Ming has also sent out many elites to find Yao Li and the others. Yao Ling said, we must not let Yao Ming catch Yao Li and the others, or the consequences will be unimaginable. The half-saint said, then, what should we do if the two sides meet and fight for Yao Li? Yao Ling said, even if we have to fight, we must take Yao Li back. Yes. The half-saint said, I will go immediately. Then, the half-saint left, and only Yao Leng was left in the castle hall. He sat on the cold iron chair, looked up at the roof, and muttered to himself, Sir Yang Dingtian, where are you? I really miss you. How good would it be if you were here? Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be surprised. That was not to the extent of missing him. Although he and Yao Leng had become friends, and both sides appreciated each other, it was not to the extent of missing him. This time, Yang Dingtian was preparing something in the second dark realm. He did not interfere in any battles and directly found Yao Li and the others, then immediately left and returned to the human countries. Chapter 869. Just like this, Yang Dingtian prepared to leave the castle immediately to look for Yao Li and Yao Zi sisters. Right at this moment, another Fox clan expert came in and said, Young master, the prospective wife is in great danger. She vomited black blood again. I'm afraid she won't live for long. Yao Ling trembled suddenly, his face twitching as he said in a cold voice, Yao Ming, I must take revenge for this. Yang Dingtian was stunned when he heard this. When did Yao Ling have a prospective wife? Wasn't he always infatuated with Jia? Then, Yao Ling immediately got up and went to see his so-called prospective wife. His prospective wife was underground. Yang Dingtian turned invisible and followed him into the underground cave. The top of this castle was no longer big, but the bottom was even bigger with many caves. Coming into a cave, Yang Dingtian immediately smelled a pungent medicinal smell. In the entire castle, this room was considered the best condition. At least, there was a lot of silk and a thin blanket. Very soon, Yang Dingtian saw Yao Ling's so-called prospective wife. He recognized this woman at a glance. She was from the Shadow Spear clan and could be considered Jia's cousin. Although she wasn't as beautiful as Jia, there were some similarities. What was her name again? It seemed to be Yao Mi. Yao Leng should love the house and its crow. Because he was infatuated with Jia, he got together with this Yao Mi. Furthermore, this Yao Mi was following the Golden Ah clan's young master Yao Ming at that time. However, because Yao Ming was unfair, Yao Ling revealed the demeanor of a leader at the crucial moment. Therefore, Yao Mi chose to leave Yao Ming's team and joined Yao Ling's side. It was also because of these various reasons that Yao Ling got together with her and became a prospective husband and wife. However, this Yao Mi was poisoned by some unknown poison. Her entire skin was purple, and the blood flowing out of the corner of her mouth was also black. Her breathing was weak. Clearly, she didn't have long to live. Looking at her face that was somewhat similar to Jia's, Yang Dingtian's heart softened and wanted to appear to save her. He should be able to save her. This was clearly a material poison and not a mental poison. Yang Dingtian's blood could cure hundreds of poisons. However, Yang Dingtian held himself back. Right now, the most important thing was to find Yao Li and the others. Then, he would immediately leave this troublesome place. Once he showed himself, he might bring trouble. As for bringing Yao Ling back to the human nations, or even letting Yao Ling help in the Great War of Extinction, Yang Dingtian had no such thoughts. Yao Ling was involved in too many fox demon experts. He wasn't pure at all. It was impossible to drag him along to the human countries. It was impossible to get them to help in the battle. Instead, it would only bring about disaster. Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others were an absolutely pure group. Moreover, they had been with Yang Dingtian for a year or two. They trusted him with their lives and had absolute trust in him. That was why Yang Dingtian dared to pull them into the Council of Light. Therefore, Yang Dingtian could only harden his heart and turn around to leave. Yang Dingtian turned invisible and left the castle to search for Yao Li, and the others. Just as he left the castle not far away, Yang Dingtian suddenly felt an incomparably powerful energy fluctuation. Immediately after, he saw a figure flying over quickly. Yang Dingtian immediately stopped. This figure whizzed over, and the direction just happened to be that castle. Not only that, but there was also a familiar elemental creature lying on his body. A demon spirit, a rank 18 demon spirit. This demon spirit directly lay on his shoulder and chattered endlessly, but did not kill him. His speed was very fast, but Yang Dingtian still vaguely remembered that this was the trusted aide of the Golden Ah clan's young lord, Yao Ming. He was also an expert above half-sage. Really strange, why did the demon spirit not kill him? Instead, he lay on his shoulder as if he had become his pet. Very soon, Yang Dingtian thought of the reason. He had evil spirit energy on him. This was the only reason. However, Yang Dingtian had already given the 4th grade evil spirit energy to Yao Li. Why would it fall into Yao Ming's hands? Why would Yao Ming's half-sage trusted aide bring a rank 18 demon spirit to Yao Ling's castle? Yang Dingtian quickly figured it out. It was for a massacre. That's right, he used this rank 18 demon spirit to lure Yao Ling's castle to start a massacre and wipe out all of Yao Ling's people. How vicious was that? How vicious was this demonic cry? Moreover, after the Great Fission, how did Yao Ming find this rank 18 demon spirit? Now, Yang Dingtian was most concerned about Yao Li. What happened to Yao Zi? A rank 4 demon spirit actually fell into Yao Ming's hands. What did this mean? No matter how much of a beast Yao Ming was, he shouldn't be so vicious to his own sister, right? Yang Dingtian was suddenly a little anxious. Yao Li, Bo Lu, and the others were not only his biggest helpers in the future. The most important thing was that after spending 1 or 2 years together, Yang Dingtian completely regarded them as his best friends. However, the most dangerous thing now should be Yao Ling's castle. This rank 18 demon spirit was enough to wipe out all of the Fox clan experts in the castle. Then, should Yang Dingtian go back and save them? Facing Jia's cousin, Yang Dingtian could harden his heart and not save her. However, facing 100 or 200 Fox clan experts, Yang Dingtian really couldn't harden his heart. One had to know that most of them had fought side by side with Yang Dingtian before. They even offered their energy essence for Yang Dingtian to break through. Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian still couldn't leave them in the lurch. Therefore, he immediately went back at full speed. By the time Yang Dingtian returned to Yaoling Castle, the massacre of the rank 18 demon spirit had already begun. As for Yao Ming's half-saint confidant, after luring the demon spirit to Yaoling Castle, he had already disappeared. Yang Dingtian didn't know how he got rid of this rank 18 demon spirit and lured its attention to the Fox clan experts in Yaoling Castle. In short, the massacre of Yaoling's subordinates by the rank 18 demon spirit had already begun. At this moment, Yaoling had already organized all the experts to kill this rank 18 demon spirit together. However, this demon spirit's speed was simply too fast. They couldn't hit it at all. Therefore, the entire scene was a one-sided massacre. Countless demonic fox experts were torn to shreds before being devoured alive. The entire special metal castle seemed to have turned into hell. The Golden Ah clan's young lord, Yao Ming, was truly vicious. He actually wanted to wipe out Yao Ling's group once and for all. They were all born from the same father. There was a world of difference between him and Yao Li and Yao Zi. If Yang Dingtian didn't make a move to save them, all the demon fox race experts in this castle would be wiped out. This was because Yao Ling's 100 experts didn't even have the strength to fight back. Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't have any more evil spirit energy on him. Therefore, he couldn't attract the demon spirit's attention. However, he still had one more trump card. That was the rank 19 demon spirit pet. It was the rank 19 demon spirit whose limbs were cut off and whose eyes were blindfolded. At that time, it was lying on Yang Dingtian's shoulder and refused to leave. Later on, Yang Dingtian wanted to go to the third dark realm. He couldn't bring it across the border of the abyss. Therefore, Yang Dingtian directly used the energy cloak to wrap it up and put it into his spatial ring. Fortunately, when the Naga Shuang devoured the Hell Magic Crystal, she didn't devour this rank 19 demon spirit as well. After Yang Dingtian appeared, Yaoling's group was stunned. Then, they were overjoyed. Before they could greet him, Yang Dingtian directly threw out this rank 19 demon spirit that didn't have any limbs or claws and didn't have any lethality. As expected, the same kind was the greatest enemy. That rank 18 demon spirit that was slaughtering was shocked. Then, it immediately flashed over and stared at this rank 19 demon spirit. Then, the two demon spirits suddenly became the greatest enemies and began to kill each other crazily. Of course, Yang Dingtian's rank 19 demon spirit pet didn't have any attack power. It could only roar crazily as if its limbs were still there. As for that rank 18 demon spirit, it used its sharp claws to attack the rank 19 demon spirit. However, Yang Dingtian's pet was now a body of energy. No matter how sharp its claws were, they couldn't cause any damage. Therefore, the two incomparably powerful demon spirits began to attack each other crazily. However, they couldn't cause any damage at all. This scene reminded Yang Dingtian of a very funny emoticon when he was chatting on QQ back on Earth. Two Pikachu were crazily slapping each other in the face. Yang Dingtian stepped forward and pulled out his near Emperor-grade soul sword. He injected the million spirit demon fire and void-rending fire into it. Then, he wildly attacked the rank 18 demon spirit's limbs. If it was in the past, this would definitely take a lot of effort and who knows how long it would take. But now, in just a little more than a quarter of an hour, Yang Dingtian cut off the limbs of this rank 18 demon spirit. Then, he quickly wrapped its eyes with an energy cloth. Suddenly, this rank 18 demon spirit could only be reduced to a pet without any attack power. The remaining rank 19 demon spirit was already chattering non-stop as if its claws were still attacking crazily. Yang Dingtian used his energy cloak to wrap it up. Mr. Yang Dingtian. Then, he heard Yao Ling's excited cry. He rushed over and hugged Yang Dingtian tightly. Then, he patted Yang Dingtian's back hard and said, finally see you again. We missed you very much. I didn't expect you to save us again. You saved us again. Yang Dingtian smiled slightly. Yao Leng let go of Yang Dingtian, then led all his subordinates and bowed to Yang Dingtian in an orderly manner. Thank you, Mr. Yang Dingtian, for saving our lives. Yang Dingtian smiled and said, Mr. Yao Leng, gentlemen, I trust you have been well since we last met. Then, Yang Dingtian handed the rank 18 demon spirit in his hand to Yao Leng and said, Yao Ming may use the same vicious trick in the future. This rank 18 shadow demon is for you. It should be able to resist the slaughter of all the demon spirits. Yao Leng was slightly stunned and said, Mr. Yang Dingtian, this is equivalent to a rank 18 energy essence. Yang Dingtian said, in comparison, the lives of more than 100 demon foxes are much more valuable. Yao Leng received it and bowed deeply, saying, the demon foxes thank Mr. Yang Dingtian for his great kindness. Yang Dingtian said, then, I will take my leave. I still have to look for Yao Li and Yao Zi. Chapter 870. Sir, please wait. Yao Leng said, you'll be weak if you go alone. Why don't you stay here first? We'll come up with a plan to find or rescue Yao Li and her sister. It might be better to be careful. Yang Dingtian could conceal himself, so there was no need for too many people. However, he thought of Jia's cousin, Yao Mi. Since she had already shown up, why not save her? Thus, Yang Dingtian nodded and stayed for the time being. Yang Dingtian instantly became a distinguished guest in the castle. The castle's reserves were very, very few. Almost everyone survived by consuming pills. There was also some fresh food, but it was brought from Little Western Paradise a few years ago. It was all stored in special crystal boxes to keep it fresh. It was almost never used. Even Yao Leng couldn't bear to eat it. However, at the banquet for Yang Dingtian, in front of him, there was a plate of fruits, a plate of meat, and a full bottle of wine. In front of others, there was at most a small cup of wine. Even in front of Yao Leng, there was only a small plate of snacks. The banquet for him to entertain Yang Dingtian was already very sumptuous. How could Yang Dingtian be willing to eat it? He said to put it back, but Yao Leng said that if he took it out and put it back, it would spoil. Thus, Yang Dingtian wanted to share it with everyone, but no one was willing. Thus, Yang Dingtian didn't argue and ate the plate of barbecued meat in front of him. During the banquet, Yang Dingtian deliberately asked, Sir Yao Leng, in the battle between you and Yao Ming of the Golden Horn clan, which side did the Shadow Spirit clan stand on? Yao Leng said, Yao Nu's son, Yao Yi, stands on Yao Ming's side. His niece, Yao Mi, stands on my side. Moreover, she has already become my woman. Yang Dingtian immediately said, then congratulations. He raised his wine cup to celebrate, then said with a smile, why don't I see Miss Yao Mi today? Could it be that Sir Yao Leng is hiding a mistress? Yao Leng said bitterly, Sir Yang Dingtian, you must be joking. Miss Yao Mi. I'm afraid she doesn't have long to live. Yang Dingtian asked in shock, why is that? Yao Leng said angrily, being poisoned is the work of that beast, Yao Ming. He coveted Jia but failed, so he set his sights on Yao Mi. In the end, Miss Yao Mi favored me, so he ruthlessly dealt with me. Yang Dingtian said angrily, this bastard is actually so vicious. Then, Yang Dingtian said, I also have some insights into the use of poison. Why don't you take me to see if there's still a chance to salvage the situation? Yao Leng was pleasantly surprised. Really? Yang Dingtian nodded. Yao Leng immediately stood up from his seat in excitement, cupped his hands, and said, if Your Excellency Yang Dingtian is able to save Miss Yao Mi, then Yao Leng will be indescribably grateful, indescribably grateful. Then, he led the way in front, bringing Yang Dingtian into the secret underground room, to the room where Yao Mi was. In a mere 2 to 4 hours, Yao Mi's complexion already became even worse. She was practically unconscious already. Yao Leng was originally filled with hope, but seeing her appearance of being on the verge of death, he did not dare to have any hope and immediately said, "For sir to come and take a look, I'm already incomparably grateful. No matter what the result is, I'll remember sir's kindness." Yang Dingtian nodded and pretended to take Yami's pulse. Really weak, practically unable to feel the existence of a pulse. Then, he flipped Yami's eyes. It was already infiltrated very severely by the poison, and her pupils were about to scatter. She was really going to die very soon. Furthermore, her entire body was thoroughly ice-cold, not much better than ice. Her entire body already turned from black to blue. And seeing Yang Dingtian's actions, Yaoling immediately did not even dare to breathe loudly. Looking at Yang Dingtian's actions, he immediately felt that it was profound and mysterious. After acting, Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "I can try, but what the result will be, I dare not guarantee." Yaoling said, "Please, please. No matter what the result is, I'll be incomparably grateful." Yang Dingtian did not want others to see that his blood could be detoxified. Hence, he said, "However, Your Excellency Yaoling, please leave." Although Yaoling was very grateful to him and was very enthusiastic, one must not be without vigilance. Yaoling was stunned, then nodded and said, "All right, then I'll be outside. If sir needs anything, just call out directly." "Okay," Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yaoling retreated and closed the stone door. Inside the entire stone room, only Yang Dingtian and Yami, two people, were left. Yang Dingtian took out a needle and inserted it into his arm's blood vessel, drawing out a bit of fresh blood. Of course, whether Yang Dingtian's blood was really useful or not, he did not know. He used his blood to save Zhao Mu and also saved Dongfang Bingling. But what they were inflicted with was ice-cold poison. It was true that Yang Dingtian's entire body had been tempered by the deep-sea mystic poison. But if it could not be detoxified, it was also possible that this needle would poison Yami to death. However, since Yami was already like this, he might as well treat it as a living horse. Yang Dingtian found the location of her heart and directly inserted this needle, then injected the blood inside into her heart. In just a moment, Yami's body suddenly trembled violently trembling, then a painful sound came from her throat. Immediately after, a lot of black blood and blue blood spurted out regardless. This intense reaction made Yang Dingtian jump in fright. And Yaoling, who was outside, also immediately rushed in. PFFF. Yami suddenly sat up abruptly, then suddenly spat out a piece of solidified blue blood clot, then suddenly lay down on the bed again. Then, her breathing actually gradually became stronger, and the color of her skin actually gradually recovered its snow-white color. She was actually saved. Yaoling was completely and utterly shocked, completely in awe. Immediately, she bowed deeply to Yang Dingtian, and said, "Mr. is really a god." "All right, then I should leave." Yang Dingtian said, "Mr. Yaoling, goodbye." Yaoling immediately stopped Yang Dingtian. "Mister, you are our great benefactor, how can you just leave like this?" No, we must repay you well and serve you well. I know you are very worried about Yao Li and Yao Zi sisters, I will send all the experts out to search, how about that?" "There is no need for that. I can go by myself." Yang Dingtian replied. "No, definitely not." Yaoling immediately grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm, and said, "Mister, if you just leave like this, Yaoling will definitely feel uneasy." Yang Dingtian smiled, and said seriously, "It is better to forget each other in the pugilistic world than to help each other in times of need." There was still a smile on Yaoling's face, but her gaze became serious, and she said, "Actually, I have something to ask of you." Yang Dingtian's gaze trembled slightly, and he said, "Mr. Yaoling, please speak." Yaoling said, "As a human, you definitely did not enter the dark realm through the door of darkness in the Great Hall of Skulls, so there is only one way, which is to pass through the abyss border. May I be so bold as to ask how you came here?" Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly jumped, and he said with a smile, "What if I say it is not convenient for me to answer?" Yaoling took 3 steps back, and bowed deeply, and said, "After the great fission, the entire dark realm has no harvest, only the shadow demon is unparalleled on the surface, we are already on the verge of death. Mister, please tell me how to pass through the abyss border for the sake of the hundreds of lives of the Fox clan, so that I can bring everyone back to Little Western Paradise. Mister's great kindness, the entire Little Western Paradise will never forget." Yang Dingtian fell into silence. Yaoling had directly pointed out this point, then could the void fire allow so many people to pass through the abyss border? Even if it could, should he really do it? In fact, if it was only to help these people return to Little Western Paradise, then it would not be a big problem. However, Yang Dingtian wanted Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, and the others to stay in the human countries and help the Tiando League in the Great War of Extinction. They would help guard the door of the human countries. Moreover, once Yang Dingtian helped Yaoling and the others return to Little Western Paradise, it was equivalent to letting Yongshi Wentian know that he had obtained the void fire, and that he had seen through him. At that time, Jia and her child might be in danger. After a long time, Yang Dingtian suddenly said, "Mr. Yaoling, you sent people to look for Yao Li and Yao Zi not because you care about them, but because of me." Yang Dingtian now understood the meaning of Yaoling's words when no one was around. He said how much he missed Yang Dingtian and how much it would be if Yang Dingtian was here. Yang Dingtian found it strange at that time. They were not that close, so how could he miss him? So, this was the reason. Yang Dingtian said seriously, "Mr. Yaoling, what if it's not convenient for me to say?" Yaoling said, "That's not important. Please stay and let me repay your kindness." Yang Dingtian said, "What if I insist on leaving?" Yaoling said, "That's not the way to treat a guest. As the host, even if I have to force you to stay, I have to treat Mr. Yang Dingtian well." Yaoling's face was still full of smiles, but his eyes were no longer smiling. He grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm and did not let go. When he looked up, the thick door in front of him had already closed. Yang Dingtian could not flash away even if he wanted to. Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly turned cold. Although he had already thought of this outcome, he didn't save Yao Mi when he was about to die. But when this situation really happened, he still felt cold all over. Yaoling performed very well on the day of the Great Fission. He treated Yang Dingtian as a savior and provided Yang Dingtian with all his strength to break through. However, when everyone thought that the Great Fission was over and Yao Ming proposed to expel Yang Dingtian, he did not try to stop him. Today, Yang Dingtian saved hundreds of fox demons again and saved the life of his woman, Yao Mi. However, this did not stop Yaoling from turning hostile for benefits. The fox demons were an advanced civilization, so this situation was very normal. However, Yang Dingtian still felt a chill down his spine. Yaoling waved his hand, and 5 half-sages and above appeared. Then he said with a smile, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, how can you leave? You must be treated well, so I have no choice but to force you to stay." Then, the 5 15th, 16th, and 17th level experts immediately surrounded Yang Dingtian and locked onto Yang Dingtian's profound veins. "Mr. Yang Dingtian, please come to our most honorable room," Yaoling said. Then, the 5 half-sages and above led Yang Dingtian into a stone room. There was a huge energy formation inside, forming an energy prison. It was very similar to the energy prison that imprisoned Yongshi Wentian. "Mister, please be at ease and stay here as a guest. We will save Yao Li and Yao Zi with all our strength." Yaoling bowed and left. As for the 5 half-saints, they also retreated. "The 5 of you, serve Mr. Yang Dingtian well here," Yaoling said loudly. "If he needs anything, you must satisfy it." "Yes," the 5 half-sages and above replied loudly. Then, they sat down and guarded the door. Yang Dingtian easily broke through the seal on his profound veins. Now, unless it was a demi-saint expert, no one would be able to lock onto Yang Dingtian's profound veins. Yaoling only knew about Yang Dingtian's cultivation half a year ago. It was easy to break through the seal on his profound veins, but it was very difficult to break out of the energy prison. Yang Dingtian gave it a try. The moment he touched the energy wall, he was bounced back. The indestructible soul sword that was close to the emperor grade was also useless. Yang Dingtian tried to use the void-rending fire, but it was useless. Even the countless wraiths couldn't break out of the energy prison. He took a deep breath. This energy prison might be able to trap anyone, including Yongshi Wentian. But now, it couldn't trap Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian released the darkness mystic flame and created a dark vortex. It turned into a black hole and started to isolate the space. Then, he used the energy of the mystic flame to bombard the isolated space with a specific frequency to create a spatial door. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian jumped into the spatial door and jumped out of the energy prison. Then, Yang Dingtian shouted, "Men! What do you want, mister?" The half-sages outside asked. "I want to talk to Yaoling." Yang Dingtian said, "Bring me there." A moment later, the thick stone door opened. The 5 half-sages entered, only to find that the energy prison was empty. Moreover, the entire stone room was empty. The 5 demon fox experts were completely stunned. What was going on? How did he disappear into thin air? Whoosh! Yang Dingtian turned invisible and immediately rushed out. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. He rushed out of the underground, rushed out of Yaoling's castle, and disappeared into the second dark domain. After Yaoling received the news, he was like a bolt from the blue. Impossible, impossible. This energy prison is so powerful that no one can break through it. Although Yang Dingtian is very mysterious, his cultivation hasn't even broken through to the half-sages. Yaoling said loudly, "Go and find him. Send out all the experts. Find him even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground." Yes. Then, all the experts in Yaoling's castle came out in full force. Yaoling sat on the metal throne. His eyes flashed with a strange light and said, "I must leave this place. I must leave this place and return to Little Western Paradise. No matter what the cost." 15 minutes later. Yang Dingtian appeared in the main hall of the castle again. He was not far away from Yaoling. Of course, he was invisible. That's right, he was back again. He didn't go far. After leaving the castle, he lurked not far away. When Yaoling sent out all the experts, he came back secretly. This was a typical story of the farmer and the snake. Although Yang Dingtian was mentally prepared, he still felt incomparably angry when it really happened. After suffering such a loss, it was impossible for him not to take revenge. Yang Dingtian stared at Yaoling's face. He came in front of him invisible and pulled out his near-emperor grade soul sword. Then, he suddenly flashed over. Puchi! Yaoling only felt a chill in his crotch. Then, he realized that the most important part of his man had disappeared. Ah! Suddenly, he let out an incomparably miserable scream. Yang Dingtian suddenly appeared. The near-emperor grade soul sword in his hand shook lightly. Yaoling's man's thing was instantly shattered. Yaoling desperately covered his vital parts. He looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief and said hoarsely, "Yang Dingtian, you. Yang Dingtian said slowly, "If you didn't forcefully imprison me and just asked me to take you away, I might have agreed. But you actually dared to forcefully imprison me. You're really courting death." Yaoling said with a fierce face, "I've always been such a person. Don't you know? Could it be that because we appreciated each other and fought side by side, we became close friends? You're too naive." "Yes." Yang Dingtian said with a smile, "So I'm here to clean up the future trouble." "You? Are you my opponent? Although you castrated me, you're still not my opponent." Yaoling completely isolated himself from the pain. Then, he pulled out his sharp sword and said slowly, "Since we've torn our faces, it's good. Hand over the method to pass through the abyss border." Pa! Yang Dingtian suddenly struck down with a devil sky-splitting lightning. Suddenly, Yaoling trembled. His entire body was completely paralyzed, and he was completely unable to move. Pa 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 pa. Yang Dingtian's devil sky-splitting lightning struck down crazily. Ah! 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 Yaoling's body was completely charred black. He trembled crazily and howled crazily. You broke through the 15th rank?" Yaoling pointed at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. His voice was completely hoarse. "Yes." Yang Dingtian said, "Although in terms of cultivation, you're a little higher than me. But I can easily crush those of the same level as me. You're no exception. Originally, the hatred between you and me was not to the point of killing you. But in order to avoid future trouble, I'd better kill you." Crackle 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 crackle, Yang Dingtian's devil sky-splitting lightning struck down with incomparable ferocity. Directly, Yaoling's entire body was completely burned into a pile of charcoal. Ah! At this moment, a scream suddenly came from behind him. It was Yao Mi, the Yao Mi that he had just saved not long ago. Yang Dingtian tightened his grip on the sword in his hand, and he immediately wanted to kill her. But after thinking about it, he gave up. Anyway, she couldn't leave the Dark Realm for 200 years. Yang Dingtian nodded at Yao Mi and felt that an expert was approaching quickly. He directly turned invisible and used the Demon Spirit Mist Cloak Flash technique. He left the castle like lightning and instantly disappeared without a trace. Chapter 871. Following that, Yang Dingtian searched for Yao Li and the others in the vast second Dark Realm. Of course, he was also looking for Yao Ming's lair. After a day and a night, Yang Dingtian searched for thousands of miles but still could not find Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others. The situation was indeed much more complicated than Yang Dingtian had expected. Because there was no harvest in the second Dark Realm, it had turned this place into a huge prison. The Fox Clan's experts were unable to harvest anything here. Then, they knew that Yang Dingtian had a way to travel through the border of the abyss, so both sides tried their best to find Yang Dingtian. Then, Yao Li and the others became the best hostages. From that fourth-grade evil spirit, he could roughly guess that Yao Li and the others had fallen into the hands of her brother, Yao Ming. Sure enough, after 2 days and 2 nights, Yang Dingtian found Yao Ming's lair 7,000 miles to the west. Unlike Yao Leng, Yao Ming's lair did not have a castle. It was directly underground. What was exposed outside was only an entrance guarded by experts. Soon enough, Yang Dingtian knew that Yao Li and Yao Zi were in the lair of the Golden Ah clan's Yao Ming. That was because Ah Wen's mystic meridians were directly locked, and then he was hung high on a metal flagpole. It was very obvious that this was done to attract Yang Dingtian. Yao Ming clearly wanted to let Yang Dingtian know that Yao Li and Yao Zi were in his hands. This was not even a trap. He just wanted to find Yang Dingtian. Sure enough, there were a few words engraved on the thick flagpole. "Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, welcome for a chat." It was directly written in the common language of the human countries. Yang Dingtian noticed that the entrance was not only guarded by experts, but it was also tightly shut. It was impossible to sneak in to save people. That would be walking right into a trap. Unless, Yang Dingtian had a high-level devil spirit that he could let in for a massacre. Yang Dingtian could take advantage of the chaos to enter and save people. But Yang Dingtian quickly gave up on the idea. He wasn't a demon lord. Even if these people were fox demons, he couldn't just let the demon spirit go in and kill them. Furthermore, when Mo Ling started his massacre, no matter who it was, even Yao Li and Yao Zi were killed together. He couldn't sneak in to save people, and he couldn't let Mo Ling in to slaughter them either. Then the only way was to have a talk with Yao Ming. Of course, They would talk in the vast dark realm outside, and Yao Ming could only send one person. In that case, Yang Dingtian wouldn't be in any danger. Yao Ming was much older than Yao Qi and had been a half-saint for a long time. However, Yang Dingtian wasn't afraid of him now. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian appeared. Very soon, the 4 half-saints guarding the entrance of the lair noticed. They were shocked, but they didn't chase after them. One of them quickly entered the lair to inform Yao Ming. When Ah Wen, who was on the flagpole, saw Yang Dingtian, he suddenly became very excited and shouted, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, go, go." Of course, this was a vacuum, and his voice couldn't be transmitted. Yang Dingtian directly used his celestial qi energy to transmit his voice over. "Your young master wants to talk with me, so let's talk. Only he can come alone. As long as anyone follows him, I'll immediately disappear without a trace. You should know that it's harder than ascending to heaven to catch me on the ground." After one of the half-saints heard this, he immediately entered the lair and reported Yang Dingtian's words to Yao Ming. After only a quarter of an hour, Yao Ming appeared on the ground. Sure enough, he was alone. When he saw Yang Dingtian, a smile appeared on his face. As he walked, he said, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, I trust you've been well since we last met. 8 months ago, I was really ignorant and offended you. I apologize to you here." Well said, Yang Dingtian said. Yao Ming said, "Mr. Yang Dingtian, are you coming from Yao Ling's side? I advise you not to trust him. Although he acted selflessly on the Great Fission Day, he learned it from Yao Qi. He hates Yao Qi, but he's always seen her as a role model. He's still a selfish and vicious person at the bottom of his heart." Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "I'll figure this out myself." Yao Ming quickly arrived in front of Yang Dingtian. The two of them were about 10 meters apart. Yang Dingtian said, "What do you want, Mr. Yao Ming? What do you want in order to release Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, Ah Wen, and Ah Wu?" Yao Ming said, "I'll get straight to the point. My condition is very simple. I heard that you can cross the border of the abyss." "Yes." Yang Dingtian nodded. "That's your specialty. I won't ask how you did it." Yao Ming said, "I know that this world is divided into the first dark realm, second dark realm, third dark realm, fourth dark realm, and even above, right?" Yang Dingtian nodded. Yao Ming said, "My condition is very simple. Help us go to the third dark realm, and I'll release Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the others." Yang Dingtian was stunned. He thought that Yao Ming, like Yao Leng, wanted to find a way to cross the border of the abyss and return to the Little Western Paradise. He didn't expect Yao Ming to be even more ambitious. He actually wanted to go to the third dark realm. Yang Dingtian immediately said, "You want to go to the third dark realm to cultivate?" Yao Ming nodded and said, "Of course. Otherwise, would we have nothing to do for the past 200 years? Of course, we can return to the Little Western Paradise, but there's nothing to do in the Little Western Paradise." Yang Dingtian said, "But how can you be sure that you can break through the third dark realm? Maybe it's very dangerous there, and you can't cultivate at all." Yao Ming smiled and said, "Let me ask you. Have you been to the third dark realm?" Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "I have." Yao Ming said, "Then have you broken through?" Yang Dingtian nodded again and said, "I've broken through to the 15th rank." Yao Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. He smiled and said, "Since you can break through, it proves that the third dark realm is very promising." Yang Dingtian said, "But how can you be sure that if I can cultivate there, you can too?" "Ha ha 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 ha." Yao Ming laughed loudly and said, "We're all stronger than you, and we're from the Fox clan of the demonic ghosts. You're just a human. If you can do it, why can't we?" Then, Yao Ming said, "I know that in your heart, I'm just a villain. Then I'll tell you directly. As long as you let us enter the third dark realm, I'll give Yao Li, Bo Lu, Ah Wen, and Ah Wu to you. After all, they're my sisters. I can't really kill them. Yang Dingtian said, then have you thought about how you'll come back? Yao Ming said, didn't you hear me? I'll give Yao Li, Bo Lu, Ah Wen, and Ah Wu to you. Little Z will still have to follow us. So, after 30 years, you'll have to come and get us. This Yao Ming had considered everything thoroughly. But how could he be sure that Yang Dingtian wouldn't die an unnatural death within these 30 years? After all, the Armageddon War was about to begin. How about it? Sir Yang Dingtian, do you accept this deal? Yao Ming asked. Yes, I have no other choice. Yang Dingtian said. An hour later, Yang Dingtian saw Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, and Ah Wu again. Immediately, the bodies of several people trembled. Seeing him again after more than half a year, they were incomparably emotional. However, the two sides didn't have any chance to communicate. Yang Dingtian also kept a distance from Yao Ming's team. He definitely wouldn't let himself be surrounded. Yao Ming led 13 half-step saints and above, along with Yang Dingtian, Yao Li, Yao Zi, and the other hostages, directly north to the abyss border. This group of people traveled thousands of miles in a day, constantly going north. Yang Dingtian was always on guard and kept an absolute distance from Yao Ming's team. Just like that, after a few days and nights, they traveled tens of thousands of miles and arrived at the northern end of the second dark realm. Yang Dingtian once again arrived at the abyss border. At the end of the abyss border was the third dark realm. Yang Dingtian really didn't expect that there would be a time when he would return to the abyss border. Let's begin, Sir Yang Dingtian. Let's see your wonderful performance. Yao Ming smiled. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and began to release the void-splitting fire directly at the abyss border. Suddenly, a beautiful scene appeared. The void-splitting fire began to split, split, and split. It became countless black and white flames, filling the entire abyss border. Yao Ming and the others were completely suffocated. They looked at all this in disbelief. Then, these black and white flames began to fuse and become transparent flames. Suddenly, the entire abyss border became transparent like crystal. Yao Ming and the others were completely dumbfounded. Yang Dingtian said, okay, the abyss border has evolved. You can go over. Let go of Yao Li and Yao Zi. Yao Ming gasped for breath. Even though there was no air here, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and smiled at Yang Dingtian. In order for us to be at ease, I would like to invite Sir Yang Dingtian to follow us. Yang Dingtian frowned slightly and said, Yao Ming, you can't let me go, right? Of course, if Yang Dingtian went back, how would Yao Ming and the others leave the third dark realm and return to the little western paradise? Come pick them up 30 years later. Was that a lie? Yao Ming immediately chuckled, and then he placed his sword against Yao Li's neck and said, no matter what, you don't have a choice, right? If you don't come with us, Yao Li and Yao Zi will die. Yang Dingtian said, she's your sister. Yao Ming shrugged and said, it doesn't matter. Yao Li's eyes almost split open, and she said loudly, Yang Dingtian, go, go. Otherwise, I'll die in front of you. Yang Dingtian fell silent, and then he said, Yao Ming, I can go to the third dark realm with you, but you must let Yao Li and Yao Zi go. Yao Ming smiled and said, that's impossible. You won't listen if I let them go. You can flash, so who can catch you? Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and said, since it's like that, then kill them. I won't submit. Yao Ming's face suddenly twitched, and then he smiled, how about this? I can let Yao Zi, Bo Lu, Wen, and Wu go. However, Yao Zi must stay behind with us. What do you think? I must have a hostage that can control you. Yao Ming was very smart, and he immediately noticed that Yao Li was the most important to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian thought for a while, and then he nodded, all right, let them go. Yao Ming waved his hand and said, let them go. In an instant, over a dozen half-saints released Bo Lu and the others from their shackles. On the other hand, Yao Ming personally grabbed Yao Li's arm. Bo Lu spoke slowly, "Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, we'll stay together if we stay, and we'll leave together if we leave." Yao Zi spoke loudly, "Right, if worse comes to worst, we'll die together." Yang Dingtian spoke word by word, "From now onward, I'm your new leader. So, obey my orders and leave immediately." Bo Lu instantly shuddered. Yang Dingtian spoke word by word once more, "Leave immediately. Now. This is an order." Bo Lu glanced deeply at Yang Dingtian, and then he didn't say another word before grabbing Yao Zi and dashing off swiftly. On the other hand, Wen and Wu glanced at Yang Dingtian before they dashed off as well. In the blink of an eye, all of them had vanished without a trace. "All right, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, please go ahead," said Yao Ming. Yang Dingtian glanced at Yao Ming and laughed coldly in his heart, "Vicious idiot. If you want to die, then I'll grant you your wish." After that, Yang Dingtian didn't say another word and directly jumped into the purified abyss. When he saw Yang Dingtian jump down, Yao Ming immediately pulled Yao Li along and jumped down as well. The remaining half-saints all jumped down as well. Chapter 872. Of course, the best way was to snatch Yao Li from Yao Ming's hands when passing through the abyss border. However, no one could do this because when passing through the abyss border, one's entire body would fall into a very strange state. It was as if one was traveling through time and space, completely unable to move. Yang Dingtian's plan was to instantly enter the third dark realm because it was daytime there and there was a thick devouring fog everywhere. Once Yao Ming passed, all the energy in his body would be crazily devoured. In an instant, his reaction would be to protect himself. At that time, he would not be able to care about Yao Li at all. The dozen or so half-step saints who had been surrounding him could not care about him at all. At this moment, Yang Dingtian immediately made his move. He flashed and snatched Yao Li, then flashed away. As for Yao Ming and the dozen or so half-step saints, they would stay in the third dark realm. There was a saying that one would not die if one did not seek death. When passing through the abyss border, time seemed to stop, so there was basically no concept of time. The first time would feel like a long, long time. And Yang Dingtian would have a general feeling and roughly know when the travel would end. When the travel was about to end, Yang Dingtian silently counted in his heart. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 1, 0. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian suddenly rushed out of the abyss border and arrived at the third dark realm. At this moment, there was a thick devouring fog everywhere. Under the sunlight, the entire world was golden and could not see anything at all. Yang Dingtian held his breath and immediately enveloped his entire body with the void-rending fire to purify the surrounding illusion. In an instant. Whoosh! Yao Ming grabbed Yao Li's hand tightly and rushed out of the abyss border, suddenly appearing in this field of vision. The first time he entered the third dark realm, he was temporarily at a loss because he could not react in time. The feeling of traveling through time and space stopped. Then, he felt his body being devoured and constantly falling. He would fall into extreme fear. Almost everyone was no exception. This was because most people's reactions to the unknown were similar. Sure enough, after coming over, Yao Ming was temporarily at a loss. Then, he felt the energy in his body being devoured crazily. He cried out in anger and used his profound qi to desperately protect himself. Now was the time to make a move. So, Yang Dingtian suddenly flashed over. Like lightning, he directly snatched Yao Li away. Then, he used blink and instantly disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the dozen or so half-saints by Yao Ming's side had completed their teleportation and charged into the third dark domain. At this time, the edge of the abyss began to condense rapidly, and it was about to recover into a void-rending fire. Yao Ming felt his energy being devoured and Yao Li disappearing from his hand. He immediately knew that he had been tricked by Yang Dingtian. He was furious. If they chased after Yang Dingtian, they would soon be dead. Trying to catch up to Yang Dingtian in the third dark domain was simply a pipe dream. Of course, if they didn't chase after Yang Dingtian, they would be dead for sure. It was just a matter of time. In short, Yao Ming and the others were doomed because they did not have the spatial rending flame or an energy shield. Once all of their energy was devoured, it would be their time of death. At this time, Yang Dingtian had already disappeared without a trace. But, what Yang Dingtian did not know was, Yao Ming did not chase after them, nor did he wait for death. Instead, he made an unexpected move. Whoosh! He suddenly jumped into the abyss border. That's right, he jumped back. At this time, the transparent spatial rending fire at the abyss border was rapidly shrinking and condensing. If he did that, it was very likely that he would be reduced to ashes. After seeing Yao Ming's action, the remaining dozen or so half-saints also jumped into the abyss border in an attempt to return to the second dark domain. Yao Ming succeeded. Before the spatial rending fire completely condensed and the abyss border completely recovered, he successfully returned to the second dark domain. It was a narrow escape. However, the dozen or so half-saints around him were not so lucky. Only 4 of them returned to the second dark domain in one piece. 4 of them were already badly mutilated. The remaining half were completely reduced to ashes. They did not even have a complete corpse. Yao Ming immediately gritted his teeth and said sternly, Yang Dingtian, Yang Dingtian. I will definitely tear you to pieces. Yao Li, Yao Zi, I will tear you to pieces. Tear you to pieces. He had always been confident in his cunning, but he did not expect to fall into Yang Dingtian's trap. He did go to the third dark domain, but he returned after half a fart's time. More than half of the half-saints around him had been killed. Now, he was completely at a disadvantage in his battle with Yao Leng. Yao Ming gritted his teeth and thought for a while. Yang Dingtian will definitely return to the second dark domain. We will patrol the abyss border. We must catch them. A half-saint beside him said hatefully, Young master, should we go to Yao Zi and Bo Lu? They must not have gone far. Yao Ming said, are you an idiot? Right now, capturing Yang Dingtian is easier than capturing Bo Lu and Yao Zi. Then, Yao Ming led the remaining half-saints and quickly patrolled along the abyss border. They must encounter Yang Dingtian, then capture and torture him to death. Of course, Yao Ming could only dream on. After the void fissure fire at the abyss border completely condensed, it directly flew several hundred kilometers and re-entered Yang Dingtian's body. Meanwhile, Yang Dingtian had completely disregarded the mystic qi as he hugged Yao Li and constantly flashed towards the south. In an instant, he flashed 1,000 to 2,000 kilometers. The void fissure fire enveloped the 2 of them. Everywhere it passed, it purified any devouring fog. The 2 of them were safe and sound. Yao Li seemed to be a little embarrassed being hugged by Yang Dingtian like this, but she still stared at Yang Dingtian's face. They had not seen each other for more than half a year. When they met again, she was actually saved. This feeling was really very strange. Very soon, Yang Dingtian arrived at the abyss border 2,000 kilometers to the south. He released the void fissure fire to the abyss border once more. Immediately, the void fissure fire split apart again, splitting into countless black and white dual fires, then started condensing into transparent fire. The entire abyss border became transparent crystal, thoroughly purified. Yang Dingtian pulled Yao Li's hand and suddenly leaped, jumping into the abyss border. A moment later, Yang Dingtian leaped out of the abyss border and returned to the second dark domain. Then, he did not stop at all, directly speeding toward the southern part of the second dark domain. Because when Yang Dingtian told Bo Lu and the rest to hurry up and leave just now, it was to have them go to the place where they met for the first time. Yang Dingtian used mouth movements. Yao Zi, Ah Wen, and Ah Wu did not notice. But Bo Lu clearly noticed it and immediately led the three of them to speed toward that place. Yang Dingtian brought Yao Li and swiftly flashed, heading toward the agreed place. His speed was so fast that it defied the natural order. Moreover, he did not care about the consumption of celestial qi at all, using the demonic spirit mist cloak's flash technique. When his celestial qi was exhausted, he immediately sat down cross-legged and used the mystic gathering pill to recover, while Yao Li stood guard beside him. Just like that, in just a few hours, Yang Dingtian actually caught up with Bo Lu and Yao Zi. They were still far from the rendezvous point, but he had caught up. Of course, this was not a chance encounter. In the vast dark domain, the probability of a chance encounter was almost zero. It was Yang Dingtian who calculated their route and roughly knew where they were, so he specifically chased after them. After meeting, Yao Zi shouted loudly, wanting to rush into Yang Dingtian's arms immediately. She completely ignored Yao Li's stern gaze. Yang Dingtian let her hug him for 2 seconds, then directly pulled her by the arm. Without any greetings, he quickly sped toward the south without any pause. Right now, the second dark domain was too chaotic and too complicated. Yang Dingtian had become the greatest enemy of both camps at the same time. They had to leave this place as soon as possible. If they encountered a large number of experts from both camps, Yang Dingtian might be able to escape, but if he wanted to escape with the 5 of them, it would not be so easy. Therefore, after meeting them, they only nodded and continued to run toward the south. As they ran, Yang Dingtian released countless wraith detection. If they encountered any energy fluctuations, they would immediately change their route to avoid them. This was because they were not elemental creatures, but fox demon experts from both camps. After a few days and nights, the 5 of them finally ran for tens of thousands of miles without sleep and rest. They arrived at the southern end of the second dark domain. In front of them was the border of the abyss. Passing through this border of the abyss was the first dark domain. Yang Dingtian, Yao Li, and Bo Lu looked at each other. Subsequently, Yang Dingtian turned to look at the second dark domain behind them and laughed. Now, even if you don't follow me back to the human kingdoms, the second dark domain has turned into a mess. Of course we'll go with you. Yao Zi grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm tightly and said, I want to follow you for the rest of my life. The days when you weren't around felt like years to me, so I've already confirmed my feelings. Yang Dingtian's mind automatically filtered out the childish words behind Yao Zi's words. The days felt like years to her, not because Yang Dingtian was not around, but because there was no harvest in the second dark domain. Everyone would feel the same way. Yao Li said, we've already sworn that we'll follow you and fight alongside you for the rest of our lives. Unfortunately, we haven't broken through to Half-Saint. Yang Dingtian sighed. In the future, it might be very, very difficult to break through to Half-Saint. Then, Yang Dingtian released the Void Fissure Fire and entered the border of the abyss. The Void Fissure Fire quickly split and finally condensed into a transparent flame. Immediately, the border of the abyss was purified like a crystal. Are you ready? Follow me home, to my home, Yang Dingtian said. Your home is my home, Yao Zi hurriedly said. Yang Dingtian automatically filtered again and then jumped into the abyss. Yao Li, Yao Zi, Bo Lu, and the others also jumped into the abyss and followed Yang Dingtian back to the human countries. Chapter 873. After entering the first dark realm, everyone was finally completely safe. Then, the 6 of them once again dug a deep cave with 4 rooms and 2 living rooms. They rested and chatted inside. The situation in the second dark realm was more serious than Yang Dingtian had imagined. Elemental creatures did not appear very rarely, but they did not appear at all. The only ones that appeared were demon spirits. However, every time it appeared, it meant a disaster. In the Great Fission, the only ones that were not affected were the demon spirits. After the Great Fission, many demon spirits came to the surface and dominated, killing countless people. Yao Li and the others listened to Yang Dingtian completely. After the great fission ended, Yao Ling warmly invited them to join, but Yao Li did not agree. Instead, she left resolutely. 3 days after the great fission ended, Yao Ling and Yao Ming's teams did not kill each other. However, 3 days later, they began to fight non-stop. However, this battle did not last very long because both sides could be considered to be evenly matched. Of course, there was something more important, and that was the extinction of elemental creatures. This was the most serious fact. This meant that hundreds of Fox clan experts had to stay in the second dark realm without air and food for close to 200 years. This was a complete nightmare. They were martial artists, not meditators, nor artists. It was very difficult for them to pass the time. Later, both teams thought of Yang Dingtian. They thought that he was a human and did not come from the door of darkness. He must have passed through the border of the abyss. Therefore, both teams began to search for Yang Dingtian again. Although Yao Li and the others tried their best to hide, they were still discovered more than half a month ago. They were all captured by Yao Ming and used as hostages to threaten Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian did not tell Yao Li and the others about the new Naga. However, Yang Dingtian told them everything about Yao Ling. Yao Zi said in surprise, he's that shameless. Yao Li and Bo Lu were not surprised. Yao Li said, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, Yao Ling's behavior is very common in Little Western Paradise. We've lived for too long, so our hearts are cold. We've thought through everything thoroughly. For the sake of benefits, for the sake of survival, they'll do anything. Then, Yao Li said, In fact, before I met His Excellency Yang Dingtian, I always thought that the most outstanding leader was someone like my sworn brother Yao Qi. Furthermore, I can say that if Yao Ling was replaced by Yao Qi, he would have performed even better during the Great Fission. But after the Great Fission, he will be even more ruthless towards His Excellency Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian hesitated for a moment and said, As for Mr. Yao Qi's ruthlessness, I have fully understood it. Yao Li did not pay attention to Yang Dingtian's words at first. Then, she said in shock, How do you know brother Yao Qi? He went to the human countries. He once mentioned something about the human countries to me. It seemed like Yao Rao had successfully borrowed a seed from the human countries. He wanted to bring her back and marry her. Then, Yao Li's eyes widened. She said, The seed that Yao Rao borrowed, could it be yours, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, That's right. Yao Rao is my wife. We have a baby left. The baby of the demigod's descendant, Yang Yi. Yao Li and Yao Zi were instantly stunned. Then, Yao Zi's beautiful eyes lit up. She actually looked directly at Yang Dingtian's private parts. Fuck, this little girl's gaze is too direct. She's completely restless. Clearly, she was very curious about the baby of the demigod's descendant. She also wanted to have one with Yang Dingtian. However, Yao Li thought of something else and said, Then, did my elder brother Yao Qi go to the human countries and snatch your wife and child away? Because no one can stop him when he wants to do something. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, Yes, he went to my house and killed Yao Li. He stole Yao Rao and Yang Yi. Yao Li's expression changed. Yao Zi was furious. She said, How could he do that? I'm done with him. Don't worry, Mr. Yang Dingtian. After we return to the Little Western Paradise, we'll definitely force him to return your wife and child. Yao Li's face was pale. Clearly, no one could stop Yao Qi from doing anything. Even she could not stop him, let alone Yao Zi. I'm sorry. Yao Li said, Why didn't you say so before? Yang Dingtian said, It wasn't the right time to say it. However, now that you're going to follow me back to the human countries, I have to make things clear. Yao Li did not know what to say. She could only say again, I'm sorry. No need to be sorry. Yang Dingtian said, I've already been to the little western paradise and brought back my wife and child. They're not hurt at all. Ah. Yao Zi was shocked. How is that possible? Yao Qi is very powerful. You're no match for him now. Back then, you weren't even worth a finger of his. Fuck, this girl is so direct. Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment and said, there are many things that don't depend on martial arts. Then, Yang Dingtian said to Yao Li, there's something you need to be mentally prepared for. Yao Li looked up and said, tell me. Yang Dingtian said, Yao Qi is dead, what? Yao Li's body trembled as if she was struck by lightning. She lost all reaction. After a long while, her beautiful eyes lost focus. She said, how is that possible? How is that possible? He's so powerful. How could he die? Who else in this world can kill him? It seemed that Yao Li's admiration for Yao Qi was deeply engraved in her bones. Yang Dingtian said, speaking of which, I have a lot to do with his death. Yao Li said, you killed him. No. Yang Dingtian said, I'm not that powerful. If he wanted to kill me, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. However, I'm the one who indirectly caused his death. Tell me. Yao Li grabbed Yang Dingtian's arm and stabbed it into his flesh. Yang Dingtian said, I'll tell you everything in detail. I won't exaggerate or embellish anything. Of course, if you don't want to go to the human world with me, I can help you. I can help you return to the little western paradise. No, I'm determined to go with you, Yao Zi said quickly. Yao Qi is so shameless. He deserves to die. It seemed that Yao Zi was not interested in Yao Qi at all. Yao Li said, all right, tell me. Yang Dingtian said, I'll have to start with Yao Rao and me. Then, Yang Dingtian told her the whole story. From her meeting Yao Rao, to her getting pregnant, to Yao Rao giving birth to Yang Yi, to Yao Li's appearance and coercion. To Yao Qi killing Yao Li and kidnapping Yao Rao and Yang Yi. Yang Dingtian was a little more concise about this part. However, from Yang Dingtian swallowing Yao Li's silver dragon blood essence, entering the little western paradise, and turning into the speechless tribe, Yang Dingtian told her everything in great detail. He did not miss a single detail. Wow, Mr. Yang Dingtian, you can turn into the speechless tribe. Then I love you even more, Yao Zi said. Immediately, Yao Li gnashed her teeth and wished for nothing more than to slap her younger sister. Yang Dingtian continued. He told her how he met Jia, met Yao Qi, and became the great sage's disciple. Then, he told her how he was seen through by Yao Qi and how he was played by Yao Qi. Finally, he told her how Yongxi and Wentian plotted to kill Yao Qi. How did Yao Qi die in front of him? Every detail was explained clearly. Of course, Yang Dingtian did not tell her that Yongxi was taken over by Wentian. It was not time yet. Finally, Yang Dingtian said, Yao Li, you're right. No one can kill Yao Qi except for himself. Back then, he knew that it might be a trap, but he still jumped in anyway. Then, Yang Dingtian said mockingly, actually, I'm the same. If I were him, I would have jumped in too. It's just that I was blessed. I jumped in and got the void fire. But when he jumped in, he was turned into ashes. Yao Li did not react after hearing that. Yao Zi's eyes were full of stars. She said, so Yao Qi is so powerful. I always thought that he was boring and stupid. Mr. Yang Dingtian, you're so useless. Not only were you played by Yao Qi, but you were also played by Jia. Yang Dingtian smiled bitterly. This little girl was too direct. Yao Zi said, sigh, I really regret not realizing Yao Qi's power earlier. If I knew that he was so cool, I might have fallen in love with him. Yang Dingtian was speechless. Suddenly, Bola said, Chairman Yao Qi is the most outstanding leader and hero. But to people like us, Mr. Yang Dingtian is the most worthy leader to follow. Then, Bolu said, Princess Yao Li, I don't care what your decision is, but as long as Mr. Yang Dingtian is alive, I will follow him. So, if you want to return to Little Western Paradise, please forgive me for not being able to follow you. Ah Wen and Ah Wu nodded. Us too. To Bolu, Ah Wen, and Ah Wu, Yao Qi's wisdom was not very attractive to them. It was too scary to follow such a leader. What they wanted was recognition, equality, and trust. Yao Zi stared at Yang Dingtian for a long time. Just now, Yang Dingtian had said that she was useless. But Yao Qi was the main character. She was so smart, so powerful, so cool. She was an idol. Yang Dingtian was completely overshadowed by her. Yao Zi felt that liking Yang Dingtian didn't give her any face at all. But then again, it was not good to fall in love with someone else. Then, she comforted herself. Although Yang Dingtian was not as powerful as Yao Qi, he should be the second most powerful. However, he should be ranked second. Furthermore, Yao Qi treated Yang Dingtian as a close friend before her death. It was evident that Yang Dingtian was still very formidable. Then, Yao Zi suddenly said, Mr. Yang Dingtian, after Jia gave birth to the child, she was really close to you. To stop her unrealistic thoughts, Yang Dingtian nodded and admitted, yes, yes. Although we were enemies, Jia is my wife now. That's great. Yao Zi said, Jia is the most outstanding woman in Little Western Paradise. She's the dream lover of the young masters of the big tribes. She's also Yao Qi's fiancée. She's so powerful and beautiful. Even someone with such a high status would like you. It's obvious that you're a good person. Liking you is very honorable. Yang Dingtian was speechless. Yao Zi's brain could not be measured by a normal female's. She was very similar to the two-dimensional girls on Earth. Her way of thinking had always been very strange. Yang Dingtian looked at Yao Li and said, all right, take your time to digest this. We'll have a good night's sleep tonight and leave tomorrow. You can think about it. There's no rush to make a decision. Yao Li shook her head and said, there's no need to think about it. I'm not a narrow-minded woman. Brother Yao Qi was not killed by you. Even if you killed him, I won't change my mind. There's no right or wrong between the two of you. You're all standing on your own side. Moreover, he's the one who wronged you, not the other way around. Then, Yao Li desperately raised her head and held back her tears. She said, this is good too. I can follow you wholeheartedly and complete your career. Perhaps your career is the way of the king. It's the greatest. Yang Dingtian said, all reality, all life, is great. Therefore, saving reality is definitely a great thing. Then, Yang Dingtian said, all right, let's go to sleep. We'll leave tomorrow morning. Then, the six of them returned to their own rooms. Yao Zi's beautiful eyes turned, as if she had a different idea. But soon, her sister Yao Li grabbed her by the ear and pulled her into her own room. It seemed that Yao Li would definitely not shower tonight. Even if she did, she would shower with Yao Zi. In any case, Yao Zi could not be allowed to leave his side. Otherwise, she would definitely come to Yang Dingtian's room. The next morning, even though the entire first dark realm was melted by the sun, the six of them still got up and hurried on. However, they were not as desperate as they were in the second dark realm because it was safe here. Of course, they occasionally encountered elemental creatures, but they were no longer in the mood to hunt because the elemental creatures here were too weak. 3 days and 3 nights later, the six of them reached the end of the first dark realm. The border of the abyss appeared in front of them again. After passing through the border of the abyss, they would arrive at the human kingdom. Yang Dingtian released the void fissure fire and purified the border of the abyss. Then, the 6 of them jumped in. As if they were traveling through time, the 6 of them passed through the border of the abyss. When they opened their eyes again, they were already filled with ice and snow. They had returned to the human kingdom. This was the extreme north of the human kingdom, the border of the abyss. Previously, the cold at the border of the abyss was almost unbearable for Yang Dingtian. However, now that he had broken through to the half-saint realm, the cold was not too serious for him. In fact, his mystic fire could even provide heat for the others. After a few days and nights, the 6 of them walked out of the terrifying coastal area. Then, they stepped on the ice and snow that filled the sky. Tens of thousands of miles to the southwest was Cloud Sky City, their home. Yang Dingtian led the 5 of them and could not wait to return home as quickly as possible. Chapter 874. That night, Yang Dingtian experienced what it meant to be like a wolf or a tiger. He also understood what it meant to not judge a book by its cover. Yan Yan was born with a big chest, but she was the most useless when it came to that. She was defeated very early on. Qin Jiaojiao was very loud at the start, but in the end, she was about to cry and hide in a corner, trembling. Mu Lianyi's body was the strongest, but she couldn't do it either and was defeated very quickly. Ning Ro, was not to be underestimated. She really made Yang Dingtian see her in a new light. It seemed like she was only dabbling in it before. Now, little Ningning was already in her teens. She had always wanted to have a child, but she wasn't able to conceive 2 years ago. Now that Yang Dingtian had returned, it just so happened that it was her period. Hence, she was going all out and was determined to get pregnant. Otherwise, she didn't know when Yang Dingtian would return. The most amazing ones were Wu Maji and Yao Rao. These 2 were really demons who wanted to eat up all the bones in a person. They were completely sucking the marrow out of him. They only stopped when it was almost dawn, when Yang Dingtian's toes were about to cramp. In the end, they didn't even have time to talk about Li Qing or how much they missed him. They just lay down and fell asleep. Yang Dingtian didn't even have time to take a shower. He slept all the way until night fell. Yang Dingtian was about to get up when Wu Maji said, "Anyway, it's already dark. Why don't we not get up and continue?" Yang Dingtian jumped out of bed in shock and ran to take a shower and change his clothes. Wu Maji covered her mouth and giggled on the bed. She didn't have any intention of getting up to help Yang Dingtian shower and change his clothes. It was Yan Yan who rubbed her waist and tried her best to get up and help Yang Dingtian shower. In the bathtub, Yan Yan gently helped Yang Dingtian wash his body, shave his beard, and comb his hair. Logically speaking, the 2 of them should have countless things to say, but neither of them wanted to open their mouths. They just wanted to enjoy this quiet sweetness. Originally, Yang Dingtian should have asked if his family was doing well. "Are the children well behaved? How much I miss you." Yan Yan, on the other hand, should she ask if Yang Dingtian had a hard time in the past 2 years? They missed him so much. They were together every day, praying for him. Master's wife and his mother, Madame Shiman, didn't even dare to eat meat anymore. They were wholeheartedly accumulating good karma for Yang Dingtian. However, the 2 of them realized that they didn't need to say anything. That kind of longing had already been deeply engraved in the bones. Yan Yan quickly helped Yang Dingtian put on his clothes and combed his hair. Finally, Yang Dingtian looked like a human again. He was 10 years younger and no longer looked like a middle-aged uncle in his 30s or 40s. Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly remembered something. He took out a gemstone from his space ring and put it on Yan Yan's snow-white neck. He said softly, "A friend asked me to give this to you." "Is it a man or a woman?" Yan Yan asked. "A woman." Yang Dingtian said, "The Queen of New Naga." "Wow, that's amazing." Yan Yan said, "Why didn't you bring her home?" "I don't mind her being an elder sister." Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "We are just good friends." Yan Yan said, "I don't believe that she gave this to me. She must have said that it was for the woman you love the most, right?" Yang Dingtian touched her butt and said, "Didn't they say that pregnancy makes one stupid for 3 years? How did you become so smart?" Yan Yan stroked the pendant and said, "Husband, do the other sisters have this?" "No, only you have it." Yang Dingtian said. "That's great." Yan Yan kissed him happily and said, "I love you so much." Yang Dingtian was speechless. "Aren't you sisters very close now?" After helping Yang Dingtian take care of everything, Yan Yan said, "Okay, you can take care of your business. Master and Marshal Uncle Qin must have been waiting for you for a long time. Where is our baby girl?" Yang Dingtian asked. "My mother is taking care of her." Yan Yan said, "When you come back to sleep, I will carry her for you to play with." "Okay." Yang Dingtian kissed her lips and pinched her small waist before leaving. Master Dongfang Minmi, Qin Wanchou, and the other higher-ups of the Council of Light didn't wait for long. It was only 8 hours. When Yang Dingtian entered, they were chatting happily with Yao Li and Bo Lu. When he entered, everyone's eyes immediately looked over. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but blush. After all, he had just returned and had been debauched for an entire day. It was really embarrassing. Master Dongfang Minmi smiled and said, "Actually, we can wait until tomorrow." Immediately, Yang Dingtian felt even more embarrassed. Next, they didn't immediately get down to business. Instead, they held a small banquet. It could be considered as a welcome for Yang Dingtian and also as a reception for friends and comrades from afar. This was even better because this way, Yang Dingtian's wives and children could all be at the banquet. Not only that, Qin Huaiyu and Song Lihua's children and Kuei Ning's children also came. That's right, Qin Huaiyu and Song Lihua also had children. Kuei Ning and 5th Miss Qin also had children. Even Zhao Mu had already married and had children. As for Zhu Hongxue, he was still alone. And he didn't seem to have any intention of marrying. This person's brain was more stubborn. It would probably take a long time for him to come around. Yang Dingtian's eldest daughter, Yang Ningning, had also applied for leave from the Heavenly Edict Academy and was brought back by Qin Mengli. Yang Dingtian almost didn't dare to recognize her. She, who was about 13 years old, was already slender and very beautiful. "Daddy." When she saw Yang Dingtian, she rushed over like a flame and hung on Yang Dingtian's neck. Then, Ning Ro, cast a serious gaze from the side. However, the lethality to little Ningning was completely zero. Little Ningning hung on Yang Dingtian's neck and carefully looked at Yang Dingtian's face for a while. Then, she said, "Daddy, you've become more handsome." Then, she kissed Yang Dingtian's beard stubble and came down. Then, she walked to Qin Huaiyu and called out obediently, "Daddy, Auntie." She only called Qin Huaiyu Daddy when she grew up in the past 1 or 2 years. However, she had a good relationship with Song Lihua and even admired Song Lihua a little. She felt that she was very capable. Moreover, she had repeatedly expressed in front of Song Lihua that it was a loss for her to marry her biological father. She said that her father wasn't worthy of Song Lihua. Even when Qin Huaiyu was beside her, she still said the same thing. Qin Huaiyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he also deeply agreed. Because more and more people came. Other than the frontline commanders and those on duty at the Tiando League, the remaining higher-ups of the Council of Light were almost all here. Therefore, the banquet had to be expanded. They didn't talk about business at the banquet. Yang Dingtian carried his youngest daughter, Yang Yan, and shuttled through the crowd to talk. This little baby was already 3 years old. She was really, really, really cute. Her little face was really like an apple, delicate and pink. She was so soft in his arms that Yang Dingtian couldn't bear to let go. This baby actually didn't know Yang Dingtian. But she wasn't shy at all. She smiled sweetly at everyone. She was the kind of baby that made people's hearts melt just by looking at her. She really, really wanted to be liked by everyone. Yang Qin was already 4 years old, almost 5 years old. She had been like a princess since she was young. Now, she didn't like to be carried. She liked to wear the most beautiful clothes and let others hold her hand. Otherwise, she would just sit there quietly. And Wu Maji's daughter was also almost 4 years old. Although she was Ah Chao's twin, she really showed an incomparably stunning beauty. It wasn't just Yang Dingtian. Almost everyone present had never seen such a beautiful little girl. She had snow-white and pink skin, big blue eyes that were like gemstones, and her hair was golden. She was like a doll carved out of white jade. This kind of beauty made even Yang Dingtian feel like he had to be careful when carrying her. Moreover, this little girl was so young, but she was already so arrogant. This made many little boys feel pressured and didn't dare to play with her. However, when she saw Yang Dingtian carrying Yang Yan, even though she tried her best to hold it in, she still pursed her lips and couldn't help but tear up. Today, she wore the most beautiful clothes, just to make her father like her the most. She wanted to be her father's most beautiful daughter. When Yang Dingtian saw this, he used his other hand to carry his doll-like daughter. He couldn't help but kiss her little face. Then, he simply sat down, one on each side of his knee. Then, he let Yang Qin lean in his arms. He interacted with his 3 daughters while chatting with the Council of Light's higher-ups. Yang Dingtian had always been very sensitive to children's hearts. He was already an incompetent father, so he was very, very concerned about their feelings. As for boys, he didn't need to carry them in his arms. Yang Dingtian realized that among his sons, Yang Yi was the smartest. Yang Li's personality was the strongest. As for Ah Cho, he was a little heartless and clingy. He was also Yang Li's follower. Therefore, not only his master's wife and mother-in-law, even Dongfang Minmi said that Ah Cho was the most fortunate. Yan Yan felt that Yang Li was too strong-willed and had a strong personality. She was just like his mother, afraid that he wouldn't easily find happiness in the future. As for Yang Yichen, although he was the second oldest child, he was the one who needed the most love. Because his biological father left, he was more dependent on the love of his elders. Because of this, among the few little boys, Yang Dingtian purposely acted as if he was the closest to him. And now, Yang Yichen's identity had become Yang Dingtian's adopted son. He was the future lord of Cloud Sky City, and this had been announced to the public long ago. Therefore, even Yang Li kept saying that he was the future lord of Cloud Sky City. Just like this, the banquet was carried out in laughter. After the banquet ended, Yang Dingtian and the higher-ups of the Council of Light entered the conference room to listen to the reports of the important matters of the human countries in the past 2 years. As there were too many things to report, they started with the most important things. The first thing was the drastic changes in the Vulture Palace. The changes in the Vulture Palace were completely different from what Yang Dingtian had imagined. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.